From the towering pyramids of Giza to the silent stones of Göbekli Tepe and the precision-built walls of Machu Picchu, ancient mysteries continue to challenge everything we think we know about early civilizations. These iconic sites, along with the enigmatic lines of Nazca and the massive stone blocks of Baalbek, reveal patterns of advanced engineering and knowledge that seem far ahead of their time. How did these civilizations, separated by vast distances, achieve such similar levels of precision and design? Why do structures like Stonehenge align so perfectly with celestial events? As archaeologists uncover more evidence, these ancient sites raise deeper questions, suggesting that human history may hold secrets far more complex than traditional narratives can explain. Perched precariously on the steep mountain slopes of Pisac Archaeological Park, the Pisac Royal Sector walls are not merely an ancient architectural structure, but a direct challenge to everything modern humans believe they understand about pre-metal construction techniques. From this vantage point, overlooking the vast Urubamba Valley, stretching like a green ribbon through the majestic Andes, the scenery feels both serene and surreal. Yet as one approaches these stone walls, the initial sense of awe quickly gives way to something else: doubt. Because what stands before us is not just ruins, but the remnants of a level of engineering thought and organization that seems to surpass what a civilization without iron, steel, or the wheel should have been capable of achieving. These walls do not simply exist, they provoke. Delving into their structure, the first thing that stops both researchers and visitors in their tracks is the almost irrational precision of the stone fitting. Each block here has a complex polygonal shape, defying any simple geometric standard, yet is carved with astonishing accuracy to perfectly interlock with the surrounding stones. There is no mortar, no binding material, yet the joints are nearly invisible, forming a continuous and solid surface. This is not just a technical achievement, it is a form of mechanical art where each stone acts as a component in a massive, three-dimensional locking system. Upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that the angles are not only designed to fit, but also to distribute force, creating a structure that is both flexible and durable. This is not coincidence. It is the result of a deep understanding of geometry and physics, even if not expressed through formal equations. The earthquake resistance of these walls further amplifies their mystery. In a seismically active region like the Andes, where tremors can easily destroy modern buildings, the walls of Pisac have stood firm for centuries. The secret lies in their design. The walls tilt slightly inward doorways, and windows are trapezoidal, and the entire structure follows a principle of controlled flexibility. When the ground shakes, the stones do not crack. Instead, they shift, slightly absorb energy, and settle back into place. This makes the structure not only resilient, but almost alive, responding to its environment, rather than resisting it. This raises a profound question. Is this simply the result of accumulated empirical knowledge, or did the Inca truly grasp mechanical principles that we have only fully understood in recent centuries? The surfaces of the stones are another detail that cannot be overlooked. Many of the blocks are polished to a level that nearly reflects light, creating a smoothness rarely seen in ancient construction. This is not only aesthetic, but functional. Smoother surfaces allow rainwater to run off more efficiently, reducing erosion and extending the lifespan of the structure. Yet here lies another mystery. How did the Inca polish stones as hard as granite without metal tools? Theories involving sand water and abrasive stones have been proposed, but the level of finish still leaves many experts unconvinced. It is possible that they used prolonged abrasion techniques, working on each stone for weeks, months, or even years, a process requiring extraordinary patience and labor organization. However, all of these elements, impressive as they are, remain only the visible portion of a much deeper enigma. The greatest, most profound, and most debated mystery is the question of how these massive stones were transported. This is not just a technical detail. It is the very core of the story, where conventional logic begins to break down. Imagine the setting. Pisac is not built on flat terrain, but on steep mountainsides where every step must be carefully calculated. Narrow, winding paths snake between cliffs and deep drops, many sections barely wide enough for a single person to pass. In such conditions, transporting stones weighing several tons, sometimes even dozens of tons, becomes an almost unimaginable task. There were no wheels to reduce friction, no horses or oxen to pull, no machinery to assist. All the Inca had was human labor ropes and perhaps an extraordinarily efficient system of organization. But was that truly enough? One of the most common theories suggests that the Inca constructed long earthen ramps, creating sliding paths to haul stones upward. Yet when compared with the actual terrain of Pisac, this theory faces serious challenges. The slopes are too steep, the soil too unstable, and maintaining a ramp capable of supporting such immense weight would have been a monumental task. Moreover, there is no clear archaeological evidence of such structures, making the theory less convincing. Another hypothesis proposes the use of wooden rollers similar to methods believed to have been used by the ancient Egyptians. However, in the Andes, timber resources are not abundant, and the logistics of sourcing, transporting, and utilizing large quantities of wood raise serious questions. Additionally, the steep and uneven terrain would make rollers extremely difficult and dangerous to control. A more refined theory suggests that the Inca maximized the natural landscape, combining techniques such as leverage sliding and complex rope systems to move stones in stages. They may have created intermediate stations along the route where stones were rested, adjusted, and then moved further. But even this explanation leaves many unanswered questions. How did they control the immense forces involved? How did they ensure the safety of hundreds of workers? And most critically, how did they achieve the precision required to place each stone exactly in its final position? What deepens the mystery is the absence of evidence. There are no clear traces of specialized tools, no detailed records of construction methods, no remains of supporting infrastructure. All that remains is the result: perfect walls, standing as if they had always belonged there. This silence of history is not a gap, but a challenge. It forces us to question not only the methods used, but also the way we interpret and evaluate ancient civilizations. Perhaps the answer does not lie in a specific technique, but in an entirely different system of knowledge. The Inca may have perceived the world, materials, and space in ways that we no longer understand. They did not need the wheel because they did not design transportation the way we do. They did not need metal because they developed alternative techniques that were just as effective. And perhaps it is precisely this difference that gave rise to constructions we still cannot fully explain today. In the end, the Pisac Royal Sector walls are not just a relic, they are an open question. A reminder that history is not always linear, that what has been lost is not necessarily inferior to what we possess, and that sometimes the greatest mysteries lie in plain sight, embedded within silent stones, waiting for a new perspective to be understood. And perhaps until we are willing to challenge our own assumptions, these walls will continue to stand, not merely as a structure, but as an unsolved enigma. In your opinion, How did the Inca truly transport massive stone blocks across such extreme terrain, like Pisac, purely through human labor, or was there a lost technique we have yet to rediscover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Quietly resting in the western lands of Turkey, near the ever-shifting, winding river of ancient Asia Minor, Magnesia, on the Maeander, was once one of the most remarkably developed cities of the ancient Greek world. Founded around the 4th century BCE, this city was not only a crossroads of culture, trade, and religion, but also a clear testament to a level of technical skill and urban planning far ahead of its time. Yet what truly sets Magnesia apart is not the brilliance it once achieved, but the profound paradox it represents: a city built with near-perfect precision, yet one that vanished from history in a way that remains almost impossible to explain. From its very beginning, Magnesia demonstrated a highly deliberate and non-random organizational mindset. The entire city was laid out according to a clear geometric grid system, where streets intersected at nearly perfect right angles, forming an urban structure of remarkable mathematical precision. This design recalls the principles of Hippodamus, widely regarded as the father of Western urban planning. What is truly astonishing, however, is the implementation of these principles in reality across uneven natural terrain, requiring a level of measurement, calculation, and coordination that even many later civilizations struggled to achieve. Without modern instruments or satellite mapping, ancient builders still managed to create a city that functioned like a pre-programmed system, demonstrating an extraordinary mastery over space and structure that challenges our assumptions about the ancient world. At the heart of Magnesia stood the Temple of Artemis Leucophryne, a structure that embodied both religious significance and architectural excellence. Designed by Hermogenes, the temple followed the rare pseudo-dipteros style, a column arrangement that created a grand sense of openness while preserving monumental dignity. What continues to puzzle researchers is the astonishing precision found in every detail: stone blocks fitted together with near-perfect accuracy, decorative patterns repeated with almost zero deviation, and an overall design that appears governed by a consistent mathematical proportion system. This raises a fundamental question: were ancient builders relying purely on experience, or did they possess a form of technical knowledge that we have yet to fully understand? Beyond its temples, Magnesia's public structures, especially its theater, reveal an extraordinary understanding of acoustics. Sound from the stage could travel clearly to every seat in the audience without distortion or significant loss, thanks to the precise arrangement of slopes, materials, and spatial geometry. This was not the result of chance, but of long-term observation and experimentation. Although ancient people may not have understood sound waves in the way modern science does, they clearly knew how to manipulate sound through architecture, a form of applied science, developed through experience and careful study of nature. All of these elements make Magnesia appear almost like a perfect city within the context of the ancient world, and for that very reason, the question of its disappearance becomes even more perplexing. How could a place built with such careful calculation simply vanish from the map of history without leaving clear traces behind? The first and most plausible hypothesis points to the Maeander River itself, the very source of life for the city, yet also a potential threat. Known for its complex meandering curves and ever-changing course, the river may have gradually reshaped the surrounding landscape. Over centuries, sediment deposits could have raised ground levels, burying key parts of the city and altering the environment beyond habitability. Repeated flooding events may have damaged infrastructure, disrupted clean water access, and made daily life increasingly difficult. Yet notably, there is no clear evidence of a single catastrophic event capable of completely destroying the city. If this hypothesis holds true, then Magnesia's disappearance may have been a slow, almost invisible process, one so gradual that it escaped historical documentation. Another possibility involves earthquakes, which were not uncommon in the region. Powerful seismic events could have collapsed major structures, destroyed water systems, and rendered the city unsustainable. However, this theory remains incomplete due to the absence of concrete historical records. In many other cases, such disasters were documented in texts or preserved in oral traditions, but for Magnesia, there is a striking silence, as if such an event was never recorded or remembered. A more subtle hypothesis suggests that Magnesia did not vanish suddenly, but rather faded away over time. Shifts in trade routes, the rise of competing cities, or political instability may have gradually eroded its importance. Residents may have left in waves, carrying their lives elsewhere, leaving behind an increasingly empty urban shell. Yet even in this scenario, a critical question remains: why could such a well-structured city not adapt? Why did it fail to transform or reorganize itself in the face of change, instead allowing decline to take its course? What deepens the mystery further is the fact that Magnesia was almost completely forgotten for centuries. Unlike many other ancient cities that survived in historical memory, Magnesia seemed to disappear not only from the landscape, but also from human awareness. It was not until the 19th century that archaeologists began to rediscover its remains. Even then, a large portion of the city remained buried beneath the earth, as if it were still concealing its secrets. A more speculative theory, though lacking firm evidence, suggests that Magnesia's disappearance may not have been caused solely by natural or economic factors, but perhaps by deeper social or cultural shifts. Changes in belief systems, power structures, or even internal conflicts could have played a role. If a city loses its soul, its shared purpose or identity, then even the most magnificent structures cannot keep its people from leaving. Yet this remains conjecture, and the absence of data leaves every theory both plausible and impossible to fully confirm. Magnesia on the Maeander, therefore, is not merely an archaeological site, it is a living paradox of history. A city built with precision logic and visionary planning, yet one that disappeared in a way that defies logic. It forces us to question how we understand the past. Does history truly record everything, or only fragments that survive by chance? More importantly, could there have been civilizations that reached levels of sophistication beyond what we assume, only to be erased from time without a trace? The deeper we explore Magnesia, the more we realize that its greatest mystery lies not in what has been uncovered, but in what remains hidden. Beneath layers of soil and silent ruins may lie answers, or perhaps even deeper questions. And it is this silence, stretching across thousands of years, that makes Magnesia one of the most haunting enigmas of the ancient world, a place where the past has not merely been forgotten, but seems to have been deliberately erased, leaving behind a void that modern humanity is still striving to understand. Do you believe the disappearance of Magnesia on the Maeander was caused by natural forces like the shifting Maeander River or earthquakes, or could it have been the result of deeper social and cultural changes that history failed to record? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think truly erased an entire city from memory? Located on a high hill overlooking the vast Ararat Valley, Erebuni Fortress is not merely an ancient ruin worn down by time, but one of the clearest pieces of evidence that Iron Age societies had reached a remarkable level of technical thinking and organizational capability. Built in 782 BCE, during the reign of Argishti I, the fortress was originally intended for military purposes to control the region, expand territory, and assert the power of the Kingdom of Urartu. However, the deeper it is studied, the more Erebuni reveals layers of complexity. It is not just a simple fortress, but an integrated architectural system where engineering, geography, religion, and political authority merge in an almost seamless way. What first sets Erebuni apart is how it was embedded into the natural environment. The Urartians did not simply choose a hill and build upon it, they actively reshaped the terrain to serve their architectural vision. The hill ceased to be a passive element and instead became part of the structure itself. Layers of soil were leveled, compacted, and reinforced to create an incredibly stable foundation. This suggests not only an understanding of surface geography, but also a deep awareness of soil properties, compaction, load-bearing capacity, and long-term stability factors that even modern engineers must carefully calculate using advanced tools. When examining Erebuni's construction techniques, the most striking and mysterious aspect of the site, it becomes clear that the structure was not built merely through experience, but reflects a system of engineering thought with underlying principles. The primary materials used were basalt stone and sun-dried mud brick, yet what matters most is not the materials themselves, but how they were combined. Basalt, strong and highly durable, was used for the foundation, where stability and load-bearing capacity were essential, while mud brick was used for the upper walls to reduce weight and increase flexibility. This reflects a principle known in modern architecture as material layering, where different materials are used strategically to optimize overall performance. What truly astonishes researchers is how this system functioned in reality. Armenia is a seismically active region, yet large portions of Erebuni have survived for thousands of years. This indicates that the structure was designed not only to withstand static loads, but also to adapt to dynamic forces, especially seismic vibrations. Mud brick, being softer than stone, can absorb part of the energy during movement, while the basalt foundation ensures the structure does not collapse. This creates a rigid, flexible interaction system remarkably similar to modern earthquake-resistant designs. Another detail that highlights Erebuni's advanced nature is the shape of its walls. Instead of being perfectly vertical, many walls incline slightly inward. This was not a flaw, but a deliberate choice. The incline helps direct forces more efficiently down into the foundation, reducing stress on weak points and increasing overall stability. In modern engineering, this is a key principle in designing load-bearing structures. Its presence in an ancient fortress raises an important question. Did the Urartians discover this principle by chance, or did they understand it at a deeper level? Beyond its physical structure, Erebuni demonstrates a rare level of systematic urban planning. Functional areas were clearly defined and logically interconnected. The central courtyard acted as the heart of the complex, from which other areas such as storage facilities, living quarters, and the temple of the god Haldi extended outward. This arrangement not only optimized spatial usage, but also created an efficient system capable of functioning under various conditions. For instance, in the event of a siege, placing storage facilities near the center allowed for easier distribution and better protection of supplies. Particularly noteworthy are Erebuni's storage facilities, which many believe were far ahead of their time. The storage chambers were designed to maintain stable temperatures, limit humidity, and prevent insect intrusion. This allowed food to be preserved for extended periods, an essential factor for a military stronghold. The question arises, how did the Urartians understand these preservation principles without modern scientific knowledge? Was it the result of generations of accumulated experience or evidence of a body of knowledge we have yet to fully comprehend? Another crucial aspect is the level of organization required to construct Erebuni. Building such a large structure within a relatively short time frame, as indicated by cuneiform inscriptions, required an extremely efficient system of labor management. Thousands of workers had to coordinate in quarrying stone, producing bricks, transporting materials, and assembling the structure. Without modern machinery, moving heavy basalt blocks up a hill and positioning them with precision was an extraordinary achievement. This demonstrates that Erebuni was not only a technical accomplishment, but also a triumph of social organization. What makes Erebuni even more difficult to interpret is the fusion of engineering and art. The walls were not only built for defense, but were also decorated with vivid paintings depicting deities, rituals, and expressions of power. This suggests that the structure was not purely functional, but also symbolic. A fortress that served as both a defensive stronghold and a ceremonial center, constructed with advanced techniques, represents a rare and complex combination in the ancient world. Over time, Erebuni gradually lost its central role and was abandoned, giving way to the development of other settlements, including modern Yerevan. What is particularly intriguing is the absence of evidence for large-scale destruction. There are no clear signs of devastating warfare or natural catastrophe, only a prolonged silence across centuries. This has led researchers to hypothesize that Erebuni was not destroyed, but simply replaced, left behind, as political and economic structures evolved. Today, when we look at Erebuni Fortress, we do not just see an ancient ruin, we are confronted with a profound historical question. How could a civilization, nearly 3,000 years ago, construct a structure that is simultaneously durable, sophisticated, and systematically planned? Is this merely the result of accumulated experience or evidence of a level of technical knowledge we have yet to fully appreciate? And if Erebuni is just one example, how many other such structures have vanished without a trace, taking their secrets with them? Erebuni is not just a fortress. It is a challenge to our understanding of the past, a reminder that ancient does not mean simple, and that sometimes the structures we consider long dead are the ones that preserve the most living mysteries of humanity. So, what do you think? Was Erebuni Fortress the result of gradual human innovation? Or could it reflect a level of engineering knowledge that we still don't fully understand today? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Quietly resting along the eastern coast of Oman, where the harsh desert meets the deep blue waters of the Indian Ocean, Qalhat was once one of the most important and prosperous port cities of the medieval world, a strategic node in a vast maritime trade network connecting the Middle East, India, East Africa, and even the distant Far East. During its golden centuries, it was not merely a transit hub for goods such as spices, silk, precious stones, and metals, but also a convergence of cultures, religions, and ideas, forming a rare cosmopolitan urban space for its time. Accounts from Marco Polo described Qalhat as a wealthy, densely populated, and vibrant city where ships from across the known world anchored and exchanged goods in an almost continuous rhythm of commerce. Yet it is precisely this former brilliance that sharpens a haunting paradox. A city that once stood at the heart of a vast economic network could almost completely vanish from history, leaving behind only scattered ruins and a chain of unanswered questions. Unlike many ancient cities that declined gradually due to war, economic crisis, or long-term environmental change, Qalhat appears to have undergone a rapid and puzzling collapse. Hypotheses about a major earthquake in the 15th century are often cited as the primary explanation, but the available archaeological and geological evidence is not entirely convincing. Some structures remain standing. Certain areas show no signs of severe destruction, and the damage is not distributed in the consistent patterns typically associated with large seismic events. This has led researchers to consider that Qalhat's disappearance may not have been caused by a single catastrophe, but rather a combination of factors: natural disasters, shifting trade routes, and political upheavals insufficiently recorded in history. Regardless of the cause, the most astonishing aspect is not how Qalhat vanished, but how it once managed to exist and flourish in an environment seemingly unfit for a major urban center. Qalhat was built under natural conditions that, even by modern standards, are considered extreme. Persistently high temperatures, extremely limited rainfall, salt-laden sea winds that continuously corrode materials, and sand-laden gusts capable of eroding structures over time. There were no major rivers supplying fresh water, no fertile alluvial plains to sustain large-scale agriculture, and no abundant high-quality construction resources such as durable stone or large timber. In such conditions, maintaining even a small settlement would be challenging, yet Qalhat not only survived it, grew into a large-scale urban center with complex, durable, and systematically planned architecture. This is precisely where the technical mystery of Qalhat becomes most striking. What remains today, even in ruin, reveals signs of remarkable construction expertise. The builders of Qalhat appear to have maximized the use of local materials, primarily stone clay and lime-based compounds. But what stands out is how these materials were processed and combined, reflecting a deep understanding of the surrounding environment. The foundations of many structures remain astonishingly stable after centuries, despite constant exposure to windsalt and temperature fluctuations. Walls, though partially collapsed, still exhibit tightly bonded structural systems with layers of materials arranged deliberately to enhance load-bearing capacity and minimize environmental impact. This suggests that the builders were not simply stacking materials, but applying a calculated engineering system, a form of environmentally adaptive construction that modern sustainable architecture is only beginning to rediscover. One compelling hypothesis is the use of multi-layered construction systems, an outer layer designed to resist wind and salt with a hard, low permeability surface, a middle layer acting as thermal insulation, reducing temperature fluctuations between day and night, and an inner structural layer responsible for load distribution and crack prevention. If this is accurate, Qalhat represents not just an ancient city, but evidence of an advanced construction methodology in which every component served a specific function in resisting harsh environmental conditions. Even the spatial arrangement of buildings may have been strategically planned to optimize airflow and reduce direct exposure to sea winds, with key structures positioned in naturally protected zones while secondary constructions acted as buffer barriers against environmental intrusion. Water, an essential yet scarce resource, posed one of the greatest challenges for any settlement in such an arid environment. Although direct evidence remains limited, the very existence of a large urban center like Qalhat strongly implies the presence of an effective water management system. Its inhabitants may have developed methods to collect rare rainfall through sloped surfaces and channeling systems. They may have tapped underground water sources through wells or subterranean channels, or even established long-distance water transport routes by land or sea. All of these possibilities point to a high level of social organization and technical sophistication, indicating that Qalhat was not merely a commercial hub, but a finely tuned urban system operating with remarkable efficiency. Amid all these elements, the mausoleum of Bibi Mariam still stands as a powerful symbol of both authority and mystery, a structure that not only reflects architectural sophistication but also demonstrates the durability of construction in such a hostile environment. Its relatively intact state compared to the rest of the city raises a critical question. Were the techniques used in this structure the pinnacle of Qalhat's engineering capabilities? And if so, why were they not more widely applied? Or is it possible that what we see today represents only a fragment of a far more complex architectural system, with the majority still buried beneath layers of sand, waiting to be uncovered? Today, much of Qalhat remains buried, and each layer of excavation has the potential to reveal new clues about how this city was built, operated, and ultimately lost. Until the full picture emerges, Qalhat will continue to stand as one of the great mysteries of the ancient world, a place where the past is not only forgotten, but seemingly concealed. And in the silence of the sea, winds among walls still crusted with salt and sand, one question continues to echo. How could a civilization construct such a resilient urban system in such an unforgiving environment, only to vanish without leaving behind a clear explanation? What do you think truly happened to Qalhat? And could its advanced construction techniques be evidence of knowledge we still don't fully understand today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Perched precariously on a high plateau in northern Peru at an altitude of over 3,200 meters above sea level, Marcahuamachuco appears like a massive scar of history suspended between earth and sky. Unlike Machu Picchu, it is not crowded, not heavily commercialized, and almost forgotten. In silence, a silence so dense that anyone who arrives feels as though they have stepped into a realm detached from the modern world. From a distance, the entire complex resembles a colossal stone fortress rising directly from the bedrock, stretching across a narrow plateau bordered on three sides by sheer cliffs plunging into abyssal depths. Nature itself seems to have created an almost perfect defensive barrier. Yet within this seemingly impossible setting, ancient humans constructed one of the most complex and difficult to explain sites ever discovered. Marcahuamachuco is not a city in the conventional sense. It has no straight roads, no clearly defined central plazas, and no recognizable urban planning system. Instead, it unfolds as a vast labyrinth of endlessly stretching stone walls, strange circular and oval structures, narrow corridor-like passages, and enclosed spaces that create the unsettling sensation of being swallowed from within. Everything feels both ordered and chaotic, at the same time as if the entire site was designed according to a logic unfamiliar to us, a logic that does not prioritize human convenience, but perhaps serves a deeper purpose: ritual authority, or even psychological control. If there is one element that elevates Marcahuamachuco beyond the boundaries of conventional understanding, it is its construction technique, a feat both astonishing and deeply perplexing. The stone walls here were built without mortar, without cement, without any modern binding material, yet they have stood firm for thousands of years, enduring strong winds, heavy rains, and extreme temperature fluctuations of the high Andes. The stones were cut with extraordinary precision and stacked so perfectly that there are virtually no gaps between them. It is not merely tight-fitting, it gives the impression that the stones were somehow molded to interlock rather than manually shaped. What makes this even more unsettling is the fact that the builders had no advanced metal tools, no machinery, no wheel, and no known precision measuring instruments. So how did they achieve this? How could they cut multi-ton stone blocks with such accuracy that even a deviation of a few millimeters could compromise the structure? How did they align hundreds, even thousands of stones perfectly in three-dimensional space without technical assistance? And perhaps most puzzling of all, how did they transport these massive stones to such a remote and elevated plateau where even modern access remains challenging? Some theories suggest that ancient builders used harder stones to carve and shape the blocks, possibly aided by sand and water to enhance abrasion. However, if this were true, the time required to finish even a single stone would have been immense. How then could they complete an entire monumental complex with such consistency? Another theory proposes the use of heat to fracture stone before refining it manually, but archaeological evidence supporting this method remains limited and cannot account for the uniform precision observed across the entire site. What deepens the mystery is the remarkable consistency of construction. This is not a case of a few well-built sections. Almost the entire Marcahuamachuco complex adheres to the same extraordinarily high standard. This indicates not random experimentation, but a refined and systematic body of knowledge, passed down through generations. But what was this system? How was it transmitted without a clear writing tradition? And why did it vanish entirely without leaving a trace? One of the most impressive aspects of Marcahuamachuco is the presence of circular and oval structures. Unlike straight walls, curved construction requires each stone to be cut at precise angles to form a continuous arc. Even the slightest miscalculation could disrupt the entire form. Yet at Marcahuamachuco, these curved structures remain strikingly intact, suggesting that the builders possessed not only exceptional craftsmanship, but also an advanced understanding of spatial geometry, an extraordinary achievement for a civilization that left behind no formal scientific records. As one ventures deeper into the site, it becomes clear that Marcahuamachuco is more than architecture. It is a system designed to control movement and experience. Narrow corridors, difficult access points, and enclosed spaces with no obvious exits create a powerful sense of disorientation and confinement. This was likely intentional. It may have served ritual purposes where movement through space held symbolic meaning or functioned as a defensive mechanism, forcing intruders to navigate predetermined and restricted paths. Evidence of large-scale fires and violence indicates that Marcahuamachuco experienced dramatic and possibly catastrophic events. Yet archaeologists remain puzzled by the absence of clear evidence identifying an enemy. A fortress so naturally and strategically protected should have been nearly impossible to conquer. This raises the possibility that its downfall came from within or from a force that possessed intimate knowledge of its structure. Perhaps it was an internal uprising, a civil conflict, or an unknown event that we have yet to understand. And so the greatest question remains, who built Marcahuamachuco? The civilization behind it has almost completely disappeared from history, leaving behind no writing, no detailed records, no clear explanation. The Inca may have later occupied the site, but they were not its original creators. This suggests that a highly advanced culture once existed capable of constructing a vast and complex architectural system with techniques far beyond what we typically attribute to the time, yet it vanished entirely, leaving only silent stone behind. Standing atop the plateau, surrounded by wind and endless open space, gazing down at stone walls that have endured for millennia, one cannot help but wonder, are we misunderstanding our own past? Marcahuamachuco is not merely a ruin. It is a reminder that history may be far more complex than we have been taught. And perhaps the most unsettling possibility is not what we do not know, but that entire systems of knowledge once existed, reached astonishing heights, and were lost forever, leaving behind only mute stones that continue to challenge every attempt at explanation by the modern world. In your opinion, if modern humans were sent back to the time when Marcahuamachuco was built, could we recreate this structure using the same conditions and tools? Or would we still fail? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hidden deep within the harsh desert of the Dakhla oasis, Amheida, also known in antiquity as Trimithis, stands as one of Egypt's most enigmatic archaeological sites, where each layer of sand uncovered seems to reveal an entirely different fragment of the past, directly challenging our conventional understanding of the ancient world. Unlike the famous centers of power along the Nile River, where monumental architecture and flourishing civilizations once thrived, Amheida existed in a location that appears almost illogical, within a remote and isolated oasis where natural conditions seem insufficient to sustain a structured and long-lasting urban settlement. This very paradox has turned Amheida into a major unresolved question in archaeology. How could a community not only survive, but develop to such a level of cultural, artistic, and social complexity in a place seemingly suited only for small, survival-based groups? During the Roman period, Amheida was far more than a mere stop along desert routes. It developed into a true urban center with a clearly organized layout, complex residential structures, and signs of a relatively stable communal life. Streets appear to have been deliberately planned, houses were built with multiple functional rooms, and spatial organization suggests that the settlement did not grow randomly. Notably, the discovery of an ancient school with Greek writings still preserved on its walls has provided rare insight into the intellectual life of its inhabitants. These inscriptions are not formal or ceremonial texts, but rather resemble lectures, exercises, or student notes reflecting the real process of learning and knowledge transmission in everyday life. This suggests that Amheida was not merely an agricultural or a tijeri hub, but also a cultural space where knowledge was cultivated and sustained despite the harsh geographical conditions. Yet even these remarkable elements are not what make Amheida truly extraordinary. The greatest mystery, and perhaps the most shocking discovery, lies in the wall paintings found inside its ancient houses, artworks that seem entirely out of place in such a remote desert settlement, as if they had been transported from a highly developed cultural center of the ancient world. When archaeologists first entered the rooms buried beneath sand for thousands of years, they were unprepared for what they encountered: walls covered in vivid colors, images rendered with striking precision, and an overwhelming sense of presence, as if time itself had been frozen within those spaces. The colors of Amheida's wall paintings are among their most astonishing features. In a desert environment where temperatures fluctuate dramatically between day and night, and where wind-driven sand can erode nearly any surface over time, the fact that these pigments have retained their vibrancy for millennia is almost inexplicable. Warm reds, bright yellows, deep blues, and rich blacks are harmoniously combined not only for decoration, but also to create depth and vitality in each scene. Some areas even display shading and volumetric techniques, something rarely seen in many ancient artistic traditions, especially within the context of traditional Egyptian art, which tends to emphasize symbolic representation over realism. Looking deeper, the wall paintings at Amheida are not merely decorative. They reflect a complex and multi-dimensional worldview. Human figures are depicted with natural proportions, dynamic poses, and expressive features, clearly influenced by Greco-Roman artistic traditions. Scenes of daily life, mythological imagery, and intricate decorative motifs coexist within the same spaces, forming a comprehensive visual narrative of a society that did not merely exist, but truly lived through art. This reveals that the inhabitants of Amheida were not passive recipients of external cultural influences. Rather, they actively adapted and integrated them into their own lives, creating a unique and hybrid identity. These features raise a series of unresolved questions. Who were the artists behind these paintings? Were they local inhabitants or skilled artisans from other parts of the Roman Empire who brought their techniques and styles with them? If they were local, where did they acquire such advanced artistic knowledge, and how was this knowledge transmitted to such a remote location? And if Amheida truly functioned as a cultural crossroads, how significant was its role within the broader ancient world? And why has history left so few clear records of it? One of the deepest mysteries lies in the techniques used to create the pigments themselves. The colors appear to possess extraordinary durability, resisting fading despite the passage of time and harsh environmental conditions. Some theories suggest that the artists used specific natural minerals combined with fresco techniques, painting on wet plaster, to create a strong bond between pigment and surface. However, even with modern technology, accurately reproducing the same vibrancy and longevity remains a significant challenge, suggesting that ancient artisans may have possessed technical knowledge that we have not yet fully rediscovered or understood. Beyond technique, the wall paintings also reveal a socially complex and stratified community. The investment in such elaborate artistic decoration indicates that the inhabitants of Amheida were concerned not only with survival, but also with aesthetics, identity, and social status. The richly decorated houses may have belonged to wealthier or more educated individuals, those who had access to the broader cultural and intellectual currents of the Roman world. This implies that Amheida was not entirely isolated, but maintained connections, whether through trade migration or cultural exchange, with larger centers of civilization. When the wall paintings are considered alongside architectural evidence, traces of education and environmental adaptation, a completely new image of Amheida emerges. This was not a random or temporary settlement, but a structured society with creative capacity and a rich cultural life. Houses with multiple rooms, carefully organized functional spaces, and natural ventilation systems demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of both environment and construction techniques. Together with the intricate wall paintings, these elements portray a community that did not merely endure, but thrived with a refined sense of organization and aesthetic awareness. Yet the greatest paradox remains Amheida's disappearance. A place that once possessed a vibrant cultural life, advanced artistic expression, and clear social organization was gradually abandoned without leaving behind a definitive explanation. There is no clear evidence of large-scale warfare or sudden natural disaster. Instead, its decline appears to have been gradual, as if environmental, economic, and social factors slowly eroded the foundations of the community. Perhaps water sources diminished, trade routes shifted, or broader political changes rendered the settlement obsolete. Whatever the cause, the silence left behind only deepens the mystery. Today, the wall paintings of Amheida are not merely archaeological remnants, but rare windows through time, allowing us to glimpse a lost world in all its vivid complexity. They challenge our understanding of the past, forcing us to reconsider the level of development, creativity, and interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. And perhaps the greatest mystery of Amheida lies not in what has already been discovered, but in what still remains buried beneath the sands, untold stories and hidden knowledge waiting to be uncovered to finally complete the unfinished picture of human history. What do you think lies beneath the sands of Amheida that we still haven't discovered? Could these vivid wall paintings be evidence of a far more advanced and interconnected ancient world than we ever imagined? Or are they simply fragments of a lost culture we have yet to fully understand? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Hidden within the arid landscapes of Cyprus' Kalavasos-Tenta is not merely a Neolithic archaeological site, but one of the clearest pieces of evidence that ancient humans possessed technical knowledge far beyond what we once imagined. Dating back to approximately 7,000 to 6,000 BCE, this site represents a crucial turning point in human history, the transition from a nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle to permanent settlement. However, what makes Kalavasos-Tenta truly remarkable is not just its age, but the way its inhabitants constructed buildings that were both durable and almost perfectly adapted to their environment, something that even modern engineering continues to study and refine. These were not experimental or temporary structures. They were long-lasting constructions that have proven their stability over millennia, standing as a powerful testament to the observational skills, learning capacity, and adaptability of prehistoric humans. Examining the settlement more closely, the most striking feature is the system of circular houses with exceptionally well-prepared foundations, revealing a level of technical thinking that was far from primitive. These were not randomly assembled structures of mud and stone. Instead, the inhabitants of Kalavasos-Tenta appear to have followed a deliberate and calculated construction process. They began by laying a stone foundation, a crucial step that helped prevent subsidence and moisture intrusion from the ground. This was a highly intentional material choice, as stone not only provided durability but also acted as a barrier between the structure and the unstable conditions beneath. On top of this foundation, walls were built using compacted earth combined with small stones, forming a hybrid structure that offered both mechanical strength and adaptability to climatic conditions. This combination was not accidental. It demonstrates a clear understanding of material properties. Stone contributed rigidity and stability, while rammed earth provided insulation and flexibility for repairs. This hybrid system allowed the structures to withstand environmental changes over long periods without complete structural failure. Even more astonishing is the archaeological evidence showing that these structures were not built once and abandoned, but were continuously repaired, reinforced, and modified across generations. Layers of walls built upon older ones, upgraded floors, and structural adjustments all indicate long-term occupation and conscious maintenance. This reflects an incredibly modern mindset. Construction was not a one-time act, but an ongoing process. This aspect is what truly sets Kalavasos-Tenta apart. While many ancient communities relocated when environmental conditions changed, the inhabitants here chose instead to adapt by improving their living spaces. This raises a profound question: did they possess a sophisticated oral knowledge system capable of preserving and evolving construction techniques over generations? Or was there perhaps a group of specialized individuals, early engineers, responsible for guiding the building process? One of the most remarkable aspects of Kalavasos-Tenta is its environmental adaptability, what we now refer to as passive architecture. The circular shape of the houses was not merely aesthetic or symbolic. It likely served as an optimized engineering solution. Circular structures distribute stress more evenly than angular ones, reducing weak nickit where cracks might form. and thereby increasing the longevity of the building. At the same time, this shape enhances resistance to strong winds, an important factor in the open, dry environment of Cyprus. Furthermore, the circular layout improves internal airflow. With no sharp corners to trap stagnant air, natural ventilation is enhanced, helping to cool the interior during the day and retain warmth at night. This is an incredibly sophisticated solution, especially considering the significant temperature fluctuations between day and night in the region. Remarkably, all of this was achieved without any mechanical systems or advanced technology. Material selection also reveals a deep environmental understanding. Stone was used for the foundation to ensure stability, while rammed earth was used for walls to provide natural insulation. Earth walls absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night, maintaining a stable indoor temperature. This principle is now being reintroduced in modern sustainable architecture, yet the inhabitants of Kalavasos-Tenta applied it naturally thousands of years ago without formal scientific theory. Another aspect that continues to puzzle researchers is the precision of construction. Despite lacking standardized measuring tools or modern instruments, the buildings at Kalavasos-Tenta display remarkable uniformity in size and shape. The circles and nearly perfect wall thicknesses are relatively consistent, and interior spaces are logically organized. This suggests that ancient builders may have used simple yet effective techniques such as ropes to define radii or stakes to mark central points. These methods, while primitive, indicate that a form of geometric thinking existed far earlier than commonly assumed, long before the rise of civilizations known for formal mathematical systems. Inside the houses, spatial organization reflects a clear and intentional way of life. Areas for cooking, resting, and daily activities were relatively well defined even without fixed partitions. This demonstrates that architecture was not merely about shelter, but closely tied to social structure and cultural practices. Most notably, the practice of burying the dead beneath house floors adds a profound layer of meaning to these spaces. The house was no longer just a place for the living, but also a resting place for ancestors. The living and the dead coexisted within the same physical space, creating a powerful connection between past and present. This may have directly influenced how structures were built and maintained, as each house was not only a dwelling, but also a repository of memory and family identity. All these elements combine to form a compelling picture of an ancient community with surprisingly advanced technical capabilities. Kalavasos-Tenta may not feature monumental architecture like pyramids or massive stone cities, but its carefully optimized simplicity forces us to reconsider our assumptions about prehistoric intelligence. This was not simplicity born of ignorance, but simplicity refined through long-term observation, experimentation, and adaptation. Kalavasos-Tenta stands as evidence that humans had already developed sustainable building practices and environmental optimization techniques very early in history. And the greatest question remains, without modern technology, what enabled them to achieve such a high level of construction expertise? Was it purely accumulated experience, or does it point to a body of knowledge that has since been lost to time? If a prehistoric community without metal tools, machines, or modern science could achieve such advanced and sustainable construction techniques, what do you think was the true source of their knowledge? Was it purely the result of generations of accumulated experience and observation? Or could it be evidence of a deeper, now lost system of knowledge that we have yet to rediscover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Located in the vast isolation of the Pacific Ocean, Easter Island has long been regarded as one of the most enigmatic places on Earth. Among its many ancient remains, the Topito Kura stone circle stands out as a small yet profoundly significant site. Unlike the towering Moai statues or complex architectural ruins, this location consists of a simple stone circle surrounding a rounded stone at its center. Yet this simplicity creates a paradox. The fewer the details, the more unanswered questions arise. In Rapa Nui culture, the name Topito Kura means the navel of the world, a concept that is both symbolic and suggestive of a meeting point between humanity nature and the cosmos. According to legend, the stone was brought to the island by the mythical king Hotu Matua, who led the first settlers to this remote land. From that moment on, the stone ceased to be a mere object and became a symbol of origin, authority, and sacred energy, what the Rapa Nui people call mana. However, if it were only about mythology, Topito Kura might not differ much from hundreds of other sacred sites around the world. What truly makes this place remarkable and even controversial among archaeologists and scientists lies in its central structure, a nearly perfectly round stone placed deliberately within a surrounding stone circle. Upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that this is not a rough or randomly eroded rock. Its surface is relatively smooth, its curves are evenly distributed, and its overall shape resembles a sphere more than a typical natural stone. This raises a fundamental question. Is this form the result of rare natural processes or the product of intentional craftsmanship by ancient humans? From a geological perspective, the formation of rounded stones is not impossible. In nature, smooth, spherical stones can form through continuous erosion in water, where currents and collisions gradually wear down sharp edges over long periods. However, such conditions are typically associated with large rivers, strong streams, or coastlines with powerful waves. In contrast, Easter Island is a volcanic island with relatively dry terrain, and no major river systems capable of producing such prolonged erosion. This makes the purely natural explanation less convincing, especially given the stone's relatively perfect shape. Furthermore, the fact that the stone is positioned precisely at the center of a constructed circle reinforces the idea that this is not a coincidence, but rather the result of deliberate placement. At this point, the hypothesis of human intervention becomes more compelling, yet it also introduces far more complex questions. If the stone was indeed shaped by human hands, how did the ancient Rapa Nui achieve this? Their stoneworking technology, while undeniably impressive, as evidenced by the massive Moai statues, relied primarily on stone tools and manual techniques. Creating a uniformly curved surface in all directions without sharp edges or significant irregularities requires a high level of geometric control. This is not an easy task, even with modern tools, let alone without precise measuring instruments. This leads to a possible intermediate theory. Perhaps the ancient people did not create the stone from scratch, but instead selected a naturally rounded rock and then refined and polished it to achieve its near-perfect form. If true, this would demonstrate a remarkable combination of natural observation and intentional craftsmanship. The existence of similar spherical stones elsewhere in the world, particularly the famous stone spheres of Costa Rica, adds another layer to this mystery. Although there is no evidence of direct contact between these distant cultures, the fact that different ancient civilizations independently created or used nearly perfect spherical forms raises a larger question. Did the sphere hold a special symbolic meaning in ancient human thought? In many cultures, the sphere is associated with perfection, balance, and eternity, concepts closely tied to the universe and existence itself. Within this context, the rounded stone at Topito Kura may not be merely a physical object, but a philosophical symbol materialized in stone. The surrounding stone circle further emphasizes the central importance of the rounded stone. Across many cultures, the circle symbolizes completeness cycles and protection. When an object is placed at the center of a circle, it naturally becomes the focal point, the place where all energy and meaning converge. The combination of a circular stone within a circular arrangement creates a kind of nested geometry, as if the ancient builders were intentionally highlighting the concept of centrality and perfect balance. This aligns seamlessly with the meaning of the navel of the world, suggesting not a geographical center, but a symbolic and spiritual anchor. Another element that deepens the mystery is the subjective experience of those who visit the site. Many travelers and researchers have described an unusual sensation when standing near the stone, as if the surrounding space becomes quieter or carries an unseen presence. While science cannot verify such experiences, and they may simply be psychological responses to a highly symbolic location, they nonetheless contribute to the enduring allure of Topito Kura. Combined with reports of magnetic anomalies where compasses behave irregularly near the stone, the entire area seems to exist in a space suspended between reality and myth. It is also significant that Topito Kura lies next to Topito Kura, where the Moai Paro once stood, the largest statue ever erected on the island. The contrast between a small, refined spherical stone and a massive, imposing statue creates a striking balance. It is possible that the Rapa Nui intentionally placed these two elements together to represent dual aspects of existence, one being physical visible power, the other being invisible spiritual force. In this interpretation, the rounded stone is not insignificant at all, but rather central in meaning. To this day, the Topito Kura stone circle remains without a definitive explanation. The nearly perfect spherical stone still rests there, silent amid ocean winds and the passage of time challenging every hypothesis proposed by humanity. It may be a natural object reinterpreted by ancient people, or the result of a technique we have yet to fully understand. Or perhaps its true value lies not in how it was created, but in the questions it continues to inspire. And in those questions, Topito Kura endures not merely as an ancient site, but as a symbol of mystery that humanity has yet to fully comprehend. So what do you think about the Topito Kura stone circle? Is the perfectly rounded stone simply a rare product of natural forces? Or could it be evidence of an ancient technique and knowledge we still don't fully understand today? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Penjikent ruins lies quietly beside the Zerafshan Valley, like a forgotten memory of history. Yet the deeper one ventures into these time-worn ruins, the more it becomes clear that this is not merely a collapsed ancient city, but a world frozen between past and present, where every wall, every room, every layer of earth preserves stories that have yet to be fully told, especially the system of murals so vivid that they almost surpass all expectations of ancient art. These paintings have transformed Penjikent into one of the rare windows through which we can directly observe the life of a vanished civilization. While most ancient ruins leave behind only silent stones that force modern observers to speculate, Penjikent offers images, movement, and emotion elements that make the past feel strangely close, as if the distance of thousands of years has suddenly been shortened. The murals here are not merely decorative art. They resemble ancient cinematic sequences that capture the entire worldview of the Sogdian people, where warfare, mythology, rituals, and everyday life intertwine into a continuous, inseparable flow. What astonishes archaeologists the most is how Sogdian artists infused life into each figure, instead of static human forms. They created individuals with emotions, actions, and distinct personalities, something rarely seen in many contemporary artistic traditions which tended to emphasize symbolism over individuality. In battle scenes, one can clearly see tension in the eyes, force in every movement, and even the chaotic intensity of combat rendered with unexpected realism. In banquet scenes, figures do not merely sit still, but appear to converse, raise cups, and laugh, creating a space that feels almost audible. In religious depictions, deities are not just sacred symbols, but vividly animated beings, sometimes approachable, sometimes terrifying, reflecting a rich and complex spiritual world. This remarkable vitality has led many researchers to question whether the Sogdians developed a form of visual storytelling far more advanced than previously recognized in ancient art, or whether this is simply a fragment of a broader tradition that has since been lost to time. The deeper the research goes, the more complex the mystery becomes, especially when examining color techniques, one of the most astonishing aspects of Penjikent. After more than a millennium, many murals still retain incredibly vivid colors, from deep blood-like reds and warm, earthy yellows to rare shades of blue, all preserved despite the harsh Central Asian climate, where temperatures fluctuate drastically between day and night, and across seasons, and where wind and dust constantly erode surfaces. Scientific analysis shows that the Sogdians used natural minerals combined with organic binders, yet the exact formulas and processing techniques have not been fully reconstructed, leading many researchers to believe that lost methods of pigment production once existed, methods we have yet to rediscover. Beyond technique, the content of these murals opens up a complex symbolic labyrinth. Many scenes seem inspired by ancient Iranian mythology, yet they do not fully correspond to any surviving texts, as if reflecting a localized or parallel mythological system that has been lost. Alongside these are puzzling images, hybrid human-animal creatures, unfamiliar rituals, and recurring symbols with unclear meanings, all forming a visual system that remains only partially understood. This challenge is intensified by the lack of written records from the Sogdians, making the murals almost the only language through which we can understand them, while also ensuring that every interpretation remains speculative and uncertain. Some scholars believe these paintings depict epic narratives reflecting the history and traditions of a people who once played a vital role along the Silk Road, while others argue they are products of cultural interaction, blending influences from Iran, India, and China into a uniquely hybrid artistic style. Closer observation reveals clear traces of this cultural fusion. The fluid dynamic rendering of the human body recalls Indian art. The linear storytelling and segmented composition resemble Chinese painting, while the themes and symbols remain deeply rooted in ancient Iranian traditions. Yet what is striking is that these elements are not fragmented but seamlessly integrated, demonstrating that the Sogdians did not merely adopt external influences, they reinterpreted and reshaped them into a distinct cultural identity. This raises a profound question. How could a civilization that remains relatively obscure in historical records achieve such a high level of artistic sophistication and cultural synthesis, and why were these achievements not clearly transmitted to later generations? When placed within the broader context of the city itself, the mystery deepens further. Penjikent was not a random settlement, but a carefully planned urban center with structured housing, temples, and public spaces, indicating a complex and organized society. Yet around the 8th century, the city was abruptly abandoned, leaving behind unfinished murals, as if life had been cut off mid-moment. There is no clear evidence of a long-term migration, nor signs of total destruction, only scattered traces of burning and damage, enough to suggest conflict, but insufficient to tell a complete story. It is precisely this sense of interruption that makes Penjikent so unique. It is not merely a ruin, but a moment frozen in time, where art, culture, and life still linger in every brushstroke. And perhaps the greatest mystery lies not in what we have already seen, but in what remains unknown, the hidden meanings within the murals, the stories yet to be decoded, and the secrets the Sogdian people carried with them when they left this city behind. The faces in the paintings still gaze outward from the past, with enigmatic expressions. The scenes continue to unfold upon crumbling walls, and through it all, one question echoes across time. Is Penjikent simply a lost city, or the surviving fragment of a far larger and more complex world that human history has yet to fully comprehend? What do you think really happened to Penjikent? Was it simply a city lost to war and time? Or could it be the remnant of a much larger, more complex civilization that history has yet to fully uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might reveal a completely new way of looking at this ancient mystery. Lying quietly in the arid lands of southern Oman, near the city of Salalah, the ruins of Corori, also known by its ancient name Sumhuram, are not merely an archaeological site, but one of the deepest mysteries of the ancient world, where a glorious past and an unexplained disappearance intertwine into an unfinished story. Established around the 3rd century BCE, Corori once served as a strategic gateway for the frankincense trade, a commodity so valuable it was often called the gold of the desert, flowing through trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with Egypt, the Mediterranean, and the Indian subcontinent. Yet if it were only a trading hub, Corori would not have puzzled archaeologists for decades. What truly makes this place remarkable is the way it existed, flourished, and then vanished in a manner that seems almost illogical by conventional historical standards. Geographically, Corori is a striking paradox. The city was built beside a natural lagoon that opens into the Arabian Sea, a nearly perfect location for ancient maritime activity. This lagoon functioned as a sheltered natural harbor, allowing ships to anchor safely from strong winds and waves offshore. In a region dominated by harsh desert conditions, the presence of such a stable water source was crucial, enabling Corori to develop into a thriving commercial center. However, when viewed today, the scene appears entirely different. The waterway no longer holds the same strategic importance. The area feels isolated and quiet, and the lagoon itself seems to have changed significantly compared to its ancient state. This raises a fundamental question. Did the environment transform over time, or did ancient people possess a sophisticated understanding of geography and hydrology that we still cannot fully comprehend? Corori was not merely a trading port, it also bore the characteristics of a carefully planned fortress. Thick defensive walls constructed from large stone blocks enclosed the settlement like a protective shell. The city gates were designed with clear defensive intent, indicating that its inhabitants were not only focused on commerce, but were also prepared for potential threats. This introduces another paradox. Why would a city located on the edge of the desert, far from major political centers, require such strong fortifications? Perhaps Corori was more than just a port. Perhaps it was a strategic treasury, safeguarding a resource so valuable that it attracted the attention of external powers. Archaeological discoveries at Corori add even more depth to its mystery. Ancient inscriptions, artifacts, and architectural remains suggest that the city was heavily influenced by the South Arabian kingdom of Hadramaut, while also showing connections to distant civilizations. This makes Corori a rare cultural crossroads, where trade routes carried not only goods, but also ideas, beliefs, and knowledge. The city may have functioned as an invisible bridge between ancient worlds, a center whose significance may have been underestimated by history. Yet all these elements, its strategic location, commercial importance, defensive architecture, and cultural exchange, only make the central question even more perplexing: why did Corori disappear? Unlike many ancient cities that were destroyed by war, natural disasters, or clearly identifiable catastrophes, Corori does not appear to have suffered a violent end. There is no evidence of widespread fires, no signs of large-scale attacks, and no clear indication of sudden destruction. Instead, what remains suggests a slow decline, a city gradually losing its vitality, step by step being abandoned until only silent stone walls remained in the desert. This unusually gentle disappearance is precisely what makes Corori such a profound mystery. One of the most widely discussed theories is environmental change. If the lagoon, the lifeline of the harbor, became silted up, altered its course, or lost its connection to the sea, then Corori would have lost its primary function. Without ships docking, without merchants passing through the city, would inevitably fade into obscurity. However, this explanation still leaves gaps. Could geographical change occur rapidly enough to cause the abandonment of such an important trade center? Or was it a gradual process, spanning generations, slowly weakening the city until no one remained? Another theory involves the decline of the frankincense trade. If demand for this precious commodity decreased, or if trade routes shifted toward more accessible ports, Corori may have lost its central role. Yet historical records indicate that frankincense continued to be widely used for centuries, making this explanation insufficient on its own. Some researchers suggest political instability as a factor. If the kingdom of Hadramaut, the power behind Corori, weakened or collapsed, the city may have lost the protection and support necessary for survival. In the volatile landscape of the ancient world, losing political backing could quickly lead to decline. Still, there is no clear evidence of conflict or conquest that would explain the city's abandonment. Then there are more speculative possibilities. Could Corori have been affected by a sudden climatic shift that drastically altered living conditions? Could a disease have swept through the population, forcing its inhabitants to leave without leaving clear traces? Or were there social, economic, or religious factors we have yet to understand, leading people to voluntarily abandon the city? What is striking is that all these theories may contain fragments of truth, yet none fully explain the entire story. The absence of a clear explanation has turned Corori into a void in history, a place where evidence exists, but the narrative remains incomplete. Stone walls, ancient streets, and the remnants of a once busy harbor still stand, yet they cannot fully tell what truly happened. It is like a book, missing its most crucial chapters, leaving readers to imagine how the story ends. Today, Corori is part of the land of frankincense, recognized by UNESCO as a testament to the flourishing ancient incense trade. Yet even with modern technology and ongoing research efforts, many parts of the site remain unexcavated, and countless mysteries still lie buried beneath layers of sand and stone. Each new discovery seems to raise more questions rather than provide definitive answers. Perhaps what makes Corori truly remarkable is not only what it once was, but what it represents: the fragility of civilizations and the possibility that even the most important centers of the ancient world can vanish without a trace. In the silence of the desert, where the wind moves through ancient walls, Corori continues to pose a question without an answer. A question not only for archaeologists, but for anyone fascinated by history. What truly caused a city that once controlled the gold of the ancient world to disappear almost without a trace? And does the answer still exist, somewhere waiting to be discovered? What do you think really happened to Corori? Was it environmental change, economic decline, or something far more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your theory might be closer to the truth than we think. Hidden within the fertile yet highly challenging Nile Delta, the Bubastis temple complex was not only an ancient religious center, but also a remarkable testament to the adaptability and ingenuity of the ancient Egyptians. Built to honor the goddess Bastet, the feline deity symbolizing protection, joy, and feminine energy, Bubastis once stood as one of the most important pilgrimage destinations in Lower Egypt. Each year, countless people traveled from distant regions, bringing offerings, faith, and hope, transforming the site into a space that was both sacred and vividly alive. Yet behind all these religious elements lies a far deeper mystery, one not rooted in mythology or ritual, but in the very way the complex was constructed, a massive temple system standing firmly on soft, wet, and constantly shifting delta soil. To fully grasp this mystery, one must first understand the environment in which Bubastis was built. The Nile Delta is far from stable ground. It is composed of fine silt, mud groundwater, and layers of soil that continuously shift with seasonal flooding. The land can be so soft that it sinks significantly under heavy loads, especially under massive stone blocks, weighing dozens of tons. In modern times, constructing large structures on such terrain requires complex foundation engineering, including deep piles, reinforced concrete, and advanced drainage systems. Yet Bubastis was built thousands of years ago in an era of relatively simple tools, and still it managed to survive and flourish as a major religious center. This alone makes Bubastis one of the most difficult ancient Egyptian sites to fully explain. One of the most astonishing aspects of Bubastis is its use of massive red granite blocks, an extremely hard and heavy material typically quarried in Aswan, hundreds of kilometers to the south. Transporting these stones along the Nile was already a significant engineering achievement, but placing them on unstable delta soil without causing structural collapse presents an even greater mystery. Archaeologists suggest that the ancient Egyptians may have used a form of load-distributing foundation, possibly consisting of layered materials such as sand, gravel, or even organic components to absorb and spread weight. However, the surviving evidence is insufficient to confirm exactly how this was done, and many crucial details may have been lost over time. Beyond materials, the architectural layout of Bubastis reveals a completely different design philosophy. While most Egyptian temples were enclosed with dark corridors and deeply internalized sacred spaces, Bubastis featured an unusually open structure. Wide courtyards, expansive spaces, and rows of towering columns created a layout capable of accommodating large gatherings. This reflects its role as a major festival center, but it also raises a critical engineering question: how could such a wide-open structure with fewer load-bearing walls remain stable on weak ground without collapsing? The answer may lie in how the ancient Egyptians understood and interacted with their environment. Rather than resisting natural conditions, they may have chosen to adapt to them. Some theories suggest that Bubastis was built on raised platforms or incorporated hidden drainage and load distribution systems beneath the surface to mitigate groundwater effects and soil instability. It is even possible that they understood how water and soil interacted, designing the structure to gradually stabilize over time, rather than resist movement entirely. If true Bubastis represents not just a religious monument, but an early example of adaptive engineering, a concept modern civilization is still striving to master. Looking deeper into the structure, the granite columns of Bubastis were not merely decorative or symbolic, they may have played a crucial role in load distribution. By using multiple large columns instead of thick, continuous walls, the structure could spread its weight across many nakat, reducing concentrated pressure and minimizing uneven sinking. This principle is widely used in modern engineering, yet the fact that ancient Egyptians may have applied it so effectively remains astonishing. Equally important is the social and religious function embedded in the design. As the center of the Bastet festival, one of the largest celebrations in ancient Egypt, Bubastis needed to accommodate enormous crowds. According to Herodotus, hundreds of thousands of people gathered there, engaging in music, dancing, and continuous rituals. Such an event required an open, flexible space capable of supporting both human activity and structural integrity. Thus, the architecture of Bubastis was not merely a technical solution, it was also a reflection of social life and religious practice. Surrounding the temple, millions of mummified cats have been discovered, revealing the immense scale of religious activity at Bubastis. This reinforces the idea that the site was not just a place of worship, but a complex religious, economic, and social hub, where architecture played a central role in organizing and sustaining operations. Storage areas, ritual spaces, and pilgrimage pathways may have been intricately integrated into the overall layout, forming a system whose full complexity we have yet to understand. Over thousands of years, much of Bubastis has been destroyed. Stones were reused in later constructions, and many structures remain buried beneath layers of silt. What survives today are only fragments, making it extremely difficult to reconstruct the original complex in its entirety. As a result, many secrets regarding construction techniques, spatial organization, and architectural thinking remain unsolved. Viewed as a whole, the Bubastis temple complex is not merely an ancient ruin, it is an open question about the limits of human knowledge in the past. How could a civilization, thousands of years ago, construct such a large and enduring structure in such a hostile environment? Did they possess knowledge that has since been lost, or have we simply not yet understood the full depth of their achievements? Perhaps it is the fusion of religion, environment, and engineering that gives Bubastis its enduring mystery, a place where every stone and column is not just material, but a reminder that the past still holds answers we have yet to uncover. And among the silent ruins that remain, Bubastis continues to ask a profound question. Are we looking at an ancient structure, or at the traces of a level of understanding we have not yet reached? Do you think the Bubastis temple complex was simply a remarkable achievement of ancient engineering, or could it be evidence of knowledge and techniques that have been lost over time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Nestled quietly in what was once the ancient Lake Kopais in Boeotia, Greece, Glar Fortress is not a famous site in the conventional sense, like other Mycenaean centers such as Mycenae or Tiryns. Yet it remains one of the most puzzling structures for archaeologists. It does not impress with grand gates or lavish palaces, but rather with its very incompatibility with all known patterns. A massive fortress built in what used to be a marshland lacking the defining characteristics of a true city and resisting easy classification into any clear function. These elements make Glar feel less like a ruin and more like an unanswered question. At the heart of that mystery lies its cyclopean walls structures that not only define Glar physically, but also shape the enigma surrounding it. Glar is not just large, it is almost unbelievably oversized by the standards of its time. Covering around 20 hectares, it far exceeds other Mycenaean citadels, yet it lacks the essential features of a true city. There are no dense residential areas, no clearly organized street systems, and no central authority structures such as palaces or major temples. Instead, what remains are vast open spaces, long rows of rooms and areas that appear more suited for storage than habitation. This has led many researchers to believe that Glar was not a traditional city, but rather a logistical hub, a massive storage complex possibly linked to the control of the reclaimed plains of Lake Copais after large-scale drainage projects. But if that was its purpose, then the scale of its defensive system, especially its walls, raises an even greater question: why would a place with no clear population center require such an enormous fortification? The walls of Glar represent both a classic example and the extreme pinnacle of Cyclopean masonry, a construction technique characteristic of Mycenaean civilization, in which enormous stone blocks are stacked together without the use of mortar. However, while this method is already impressive elsewhere at Glar, it reaches a level that continues to challenge even modern scientific understanding. Massive stones, weighing several tons, irregular in shape, and not finely cut into geometric precision, are nonetheless arranged with astonishing accuracy. They fit together so tightly that the gaps between them are nearly negligible, forming a structure that has remained stable and resilient for thousands of years. What makes this system extraordinary is not only the size of the individual stones, but also how they are organized on a monumental scale. The walls of Glar stretch for nearly 3 kilometers, enclosing the entire fortress like a colossal shell. Their thickness and height indicate that they were not merely symbolic, but designed to withstand powerful forces, whether from human attack or environmental pressure. Yet the question remains, how could a Bronze Age society with limited tools and undeveloped technology execute such a project with this level of precision and scale? This leads directly to one of Glar's greatest mysteries. There is no clear evidence of advanced machinery, no traces of large pulley systems or cranes as we understand them today. Some scholars suggest that the Mycenaeans used simple yet effective methods such as levers, wooden rollers, and earthen ramps to move these massive stones. However, even if we accept these explanations, achieving such precision in placement remains difficult to fully account for. Each stone had to be carefully positioned and balanced, ensuring that weight was distributed evenly so the entire structure could endure across millennia. Because of this near-impossible achievement, the ancient Greeks themselves did not attempt to explain it through ordinary logic. Instead, they believed these walls were built by the Cyclops' mythical one-eyed giants of immense strength. And although modern science no longer supports such myths, the term Cyclopean remains as a recognition that these constructions seem to exceed what we would expect from ordinary human capability in their historical context. But does this reflect an underestimation of ancient engineering? Or are there still aspects of their techniques that we have yet to fully understand? Another aspect that deepens the mystery of Glar's walls is their true purpose. In most cases, fortifications serve as defensive boundaries, separating safety within from danger outside. But at Glar, the interior does not resemble a densely populated city or a clearly defined center of power. This creates a paradox. Why invest immense resources into constructing such massive defenses for a place that seemingly did not require them? If Glar functioned as a storage center for agricultural goods, then protection would be logical, but the sheer scale of the walls still exceeds typical needs. If it served as a control hub for hydraulic systems, was such heavy fortification truly necessary? Some researchers argue that the walls may have held symbolic significance beyond their practical use. In Mycenaean society, power was not only demonstrated through military strength or wealth, but also through the ability to organize and construct monumental works. The massive walls of Glar may have been intended to send a message that their builders had the power to control nature, transform a lake into fertile land, and protect that achievement with nearly impenetrable structures. If so, then Glar's walls were not just architecture, but a declaration of authority and ambition carved in stone. However, regardless of their purpose, the existence of these walls does not explain what happened afterward. Around the 13th century BCE, Glar was abruptly abandoned. There is no clear evidence of a large-scale invasion, no definitive signs of natural disaster, and no indication of later occupation. The walls still stand solid and enduring, but the interior is empty. This creates a striking contrast, a structure built with extraordinary durability and effort, yet ultimately left behind without a clear explanation. Today, when we look at Glar Fortress, what stands out is not only its size or location, but the sense that it belongs to a different kind of logic, a different way of thinking and organizing that we do not yet fully understand. The Cyclopean walls, silent and unwavering, feel like a message from the past that ancient humans may have reached levels of engineering and coordination that we have underestimated. And perhaps the greatest mystery of Glar is not how it was built, but why we still cannot fully grasp its true meaning even after thousands of years of study. Could the massive Cyclopean walls of Glar Fortress be evidence of advanced engineering knowledge that we still don't fully understand? Or are we simply underestimating the true capabilities of ancient civilizations? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Beneath a dry, unforgiving sky, where the sun of East Africa seems to scorch every layer of soil and stone, and rare rains can suddenly turn into violent floods, sweeping everything in their path. Conso cultural landscape emerges as a captivating paradox, a land that appears uninhabitable, yet stands as a powerful testament to human intelligence and extraordinary adaptability. At the heart of this entire wonder lies the element that astonishes researchers, engineers, and even casual observers. The massive stone wall system, timelessly resilient, a construction that the more closely it is examined, the harder it becomes to believe it was created using only rudimentary tools and orally transmitted knowledge from an ancient community. Stretching across steep hillsides, where the terrain is fragmented by rock and barren soil, thousands of kilometers of stone walls rise not in straight lines, but flowing along the natural curves of the land. Together, they form a dense network of terraces interconnected like a living organism. These walls are not confined to a small area. They extend across the entire landscape, continuing through generations and historical periods, forming a continuous system with no clear beginning or end. Even more astonishing is that the entire structure was built using dry stone techniques without cement mortar or any binding material, yet it has remained stable for hundreds, even thousands of years, despite heavy rains, erosion, minor earthquakes, and harsh environmental changes. At first glance, one might assume these walls are simply stacks of stones placed by hand. However, closer inspection reveals an astonishing level of sophistication. Each stone is not placed randomly but carefully selected based on its shape, size, and load-bearing capacity. Larger stones are typically positioned at the base or in key structural points, acting as the backbone of the wall, while smaller stones are inserted into gaps to lock the entire structure together. This combination of gravity friction and intelligent force distribution creates what modern engineers describe as a self-locking system, where each stone both bears weight and supports its neighbors, forming a stable whole without the need for any binding material. What makes this system even more remarkable is how it coexists with the environment rather than resisting it. In most modern constructions, water is considered an enemy to be blocked or diverted, but the Conso people approached it differently. They designed the walls with small, controlled gaps that allow rainwater to seep through gradually. This reduces the buildup of water pressure behind the walls, one of the primary causes of structural collapse. At the same time, the water is distributed evenly to lower terraces, helping retain essential soil moisture while minimizing erosion. In other words, this stone wall system is not a static structure, but a dynamic one, constantly interacting with its environment, regulating water flow and maintaining ecological balance naturally. As analysis deepens, it becomes clear that the greatest mystery does not lie in individual walls, but in how the entire system has been maintained and developed over time. These walls were not constructed in a single period, but are the result of a long process of accumulation across generations. This means each generation of the Conso people not only inherited what already existed, but also understood how the system functioned, allowing them to expand and improve it without disrupting its original balance. Remarkably, all of this was achieved without written language, technical drawings, or precise measuring tools. Knowledge was passed down through observation, practice, and memory, a form of living science embedded within the community itself. This raises a profound question. How could such a complex system maintain consistency in design and construction quality over hundreds of years through oral transmission alone? Even in literate civilizations, preserving technical knowledge has always been a major challenge. Yet the Conso achieved this without any written records. This suggests that they possessed not only advanced construction skills, but also an exceptionally effective social system for organizing and transmitting knowledge, something that even modern societies sometimes struggle to achieve. Beyond its technical brilliance, the stone wall system reflects a deep philosophical worldview. Instead of attempting to completely reshape the environment to suit their needs, the Conso people chose to adapt to what nature provided. They did not flatten hills, but transformed steep terrain into an advantage by creating terraces. Each terrace is not just a plot of farmland, but part of a larger system in which water, soil, and crops are managed in harmony. The stone walls retain soil, conserve water, reduce surface temperature, and create microclimates that allow crops to grow steadily even under harsh conditions. The deeper this system is studied, the clearer it becomes that it cannot simply be the result of random experimentation. Achieving such optimization would require a long process of observation, trial, and accumulated knowledge across many generations, possibly longer than recorded history suggests. Some theories propose that the system was continuously refined over hundreds or even thousands of years, with each generation contributing small improvements to the whole. Yet other perspectives raise a more provocative question. Is this merely the result of gradual technological evolution, or could it be the remnant of an ancient body of knowledge that we still do not fully understand today? Today, although recognized as a World Heritage Site and studied across fields ranging from archaeology to engineering, the Conso stone wall system has yet to be fully explained. These walls still stand not merely as physical structures, but as stone records, telling the story of how humans once lived, adapted, and thrived in a harsh environment without modern technology. And perhaps it is precisely their silence, no explanations, no documents, no definitive evidence that makes them so compelling. Because within each stone, each gap, and each curve of these terraces may lie principles we are only beginning to understand, along with lessons in sustainability that the modern world is still striving to rediscover. Do you think the Conso stone terraces are simply the result of gradual human adaptation, or could they reflect a deeper, ancient knowledge that we still haven't fully understood today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Standing silently in the arid desert along the northern coast of Peru, Paramonga Fortress emerges like a structure out of time, an architectural anomaly that embodies both the form of a stepped pyramid and the function of a defensive fortress, yet does not fully belong to any clearly defined category within known ancient architectural systems. From a distance, its multi-tiered silhouette rises sharply against the dry golden sands, as if an ancient hand deliberately placed it there as a symbol meant to challenge not only the forces of nature, but also modern logic. Yet what truly transforms Paramonga into a profound mystery is not merely its unusual shape or its uncertain purpose, but something far deeper, the very method of its construction, a technical achievement that remains almost impossible to fully explain, especially when considering the harsh desert environment in which it has endured for centuries, perhaps even millennia. The structure is primarily built from adobe, a seemingly simple material composed of clay water and organic fibers such as straw, then dried under the sun. Across many ancient civilizations, adobe was a common choice in arid regions due to its accessibility and efficiency. However, it is also notoriously fragile, prone to cracking, erosion, and gradual decay over time. Yet, at Paramonga, these expectations appear to be completely overturned. The adobe walls have not only survived, but have retained their defined shapes, with layered terraces still standing in remarkable stability, as though they were engineered to resist the very forces of time and environment that typically destroy such materials. This raises a fundamental and deeply puzzling question. How could a soft and vulnerable material like adobe serve as the foundation for such a massive, complex, and enduring structure in a harsh coastal desert environment? The answer may lie in a level of material knowledge that we still do not fully understand. The builders of Paramonga seem not to have simply mixed and dried earth in a basic manner. Instead, they may have refined the adobe formula with extraordinary precision, optimizing the ratio between clay water and organic fibers to achieve maximum cohesion and durability. Some theories suggest that they carefully selected specific local soils rich in minerals that enhance bonding strength and reduce cracking during drying. There is even the possibility that they applied now-lost processing techniques such as stage drying compression or the layering of different material compositions to create a multi-layered structural system capable of absorbing and distributing stress. Yet all of these remain hypotheses, as no written records of the construction process exist, leaving behind only a finished result so refined that it forces modern science to question its own assumptions. Beyond the material itself, the construction techniques of Paramonga are equally astonishing. This is not a simple monolithic structure, but rather a multi-level system composed of terraces, corridors, chambers, and interconnected passageways arranged in a complex overlapping pattern that resembles a massive labyrinth. To build such a structure, ancient engineers would have required an exceptional level of spatial planning, a deep understanding of weight distribution, and the ability to ensure structural stability across multiple levels. Each tier had to support not only its own weight, but also that of the levels above all, while relying on adobe rather than stone or concrete, making the engineering challenge exponentially more difficult. This suggests that the builders possessed not only practical craftsmanship, but also a sophisticated form of structural engineering knowledge, even without access to modern tools or materials. The desert environment in which Paramonga stands only amplifies the extraordinary nature of this construction. During the day, temperatures can rise dramatically, causing materials to expand, while at night they drop sharply, leading to contraction, a continuous cycle that typically results in cracking and structural degradation in adobe buildings. Desert winds carry fine rumal that act as a natural abrasive, gradually wearing down surfaces over time. Occasional but intense rainfall events can trigger erosion, washing away outer layers and weakening the structure. And yet Paramonga remains standing, as if it were designed not merely to endure, but to coexist with these harsh conditions. It is possible that the walls were built with exceptional thickness to resist erosion, or that a protective outer coating once existed and has since disappeared. Alternatively, the stepped design itself may play a crucial role in dispersing wind and water forces, minimizing environmental impact, an approach that could be described today as a form of climate-adaptive engineering. The precision in the production and assembly of adobe blocks is another remarkable aspect. The bricks appear to be relatively uniform in size and shape, indicating a highly organized and controlled manufacturing process. The walls are not randomly stacked, but show a consistent bonding pattern between layers, enhancing the overall structural integrity. This level of consistency implies a well-trained workforce, an efficient management system, and a carefully phased construction plan. But who orchestrated such an undertaking? Was it the Chimu civilization, known for their advanced construction techniques, or later the Inca Empire, who may have occupied and modified the site? Or perhaps more intriguingly, is Paramonga the result of multiple construction phases, with different cultures contributing to the structure over time? Inside Paramonga, the network of corridors and chambers adds another layer of complexity and mystery. These internal spaces may not have served purely functional purposes, but could have been designed to regulate temperature, airflow, and light. Some researchers propose that the internal layout may have facilitated natural air circulation, effectively cooling the interior, a form of passive climate control that modern sustainable architecture is only beginning to fully embrace. If true, this would mean that Paramonga was not merely a defensive or ceremonial structure, but an intelligent architectural system in which every element contributed to environmental adaptation. All of these elements, materials, construction techniques, structural design, and environmental adaptation combine to form a picture that challenges modern scientific understanding. Paramonga is not a simple structure that can be explained through familiar models. It is a complex system in which every detail suggests that its builders possessed a body of knowledge that we have yet to fully reconstruct. And that is precisely what makes it extraordinary, not its size or fame, but its ability to force us to reconsider the limits of our own understanding. Standing before Paramonga, one does not merely see an ancient ruin, but confronts an unanswered question. How could a structure built from adobe, a material so seemingly simple, endure with such durability and complexity over time? Is this merely the result of generations of accumulated experience, or evidence of a lost system of knowledge? And if we are still unable to fully replicate what was achieved here, then how many other secrets of ancient civilizations remain buried beneath the sands of history, waiting to be uncovered or perhaps destined to remain forever beyond our understanding? Looking at how Paramonga Fortress was built from adobe, yet has endured for centuries in a harsh desert environment, do you think ancient people possessed construction technology far beyond what we understand today? Or was it simply the result of accumulated experience and trial over many generations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Deep within the rugged mountainous jungles of Vilcabamba, once considered the last stronghold of the Inca Empire, the Vitcos ceremonial platform is far more than a simple archaeological ruin. It is a haunting testament to the technical capabilities of ancient humanity, capabilities that seem to exceed what we believe was possible in that historical context. Surrounded by dense rainforest, perpetual mist, and steep, nearly inaccessible slopes, the site presents a striking contradiction, a structure of near-perfect precision, existing in a location where even modern technology would struggle to recreate such work from scratch. This very contradiction transforms Vitcos into one of the most astonishing technical enigmas of the Inca civilization. Unlike major centers of power, such as Cusco or Machu Picchu, where authority and social organization are prominently displayed, Vitcos embodies a different nature, concealed, strategic, and deeply reserved. It formed part of the final refuge system when the Inca retreated into the Vilcabamba region to resist Spanish conquest. In a moment of extreme crisis, with dwindling resources and time working against them, the construction of such a refined ceremonial platform seems to defy all survival logic. Yet this paradox reveals a deeper truth, for the Inca existence was not merely physical survival, but the preservation of cosmic order belief systems and the sacred connection between humans and the divine. Vitcos, therefore, was not just a refuge, it was a place to maintain balance for an entire worldview on the brink of collapse. What truly sets Vitcos apart, and lies at the center of all debate, is its stoneworking technique, executed with a level of precision that remains almost inexplicable. The stones here are not merely cut, they are shaped with extraordinary refinement. Their surfaces appear smooth and polished, edges sharp yet free of fracture marks, and most remarkably, the joints between them are so tight that virtually no gaps exist. The result is a seamless structure that gives the impression of being carved from a single monolithic block, rather than assembled from many pieces. Even more astonishing, these stones are not uniform. They are irregular, polygonal, and often asymmetrical, yet they interlock with absolute perfection, like a three-dimensional puzzle, crafted with near impossible accuracy. Upon closer examination, this precision is not only geometric, but structural. The stones are locked together in such a way that any force applied to the structure is distributed evenly, rather than concentrated at weak points. This explains why many Inca constructions have endured centuries of seismic activity. Yet a critical question remains: how could a civilization without iron, steel, or machinery achieve a level of engineering that even today would require high-precision tools to replicate? Current research suggests that the Inca primarily used tools made of hard stone or copper alloys, materials insufficient for precisely cutting harder stones like granite or andesite. Traditional carving methods would typically leave visible marks, micro-fractures, or inconsistencies in shape. However, at Vitcos, such evidence is almost entirely absent. Instead, the stone surfaces are smooth and uniform, and the samperk lines between blocks are so exact that even a thin blade cannot be inserted between them. This raises a profound question: are we fundamentally misunderstanding the tools and techniques the Inca employed, One widely proposed explanation is the use of abrasive techniques grinding stone with sand and water over extended periods. This method could in theory produce extremely smooth finishes. According to this idea, stones may have been repeatedly ground against each other until achieving a perfect fit. However, this theory introduces a major problem: consistency. To produce a structure composed of numerous stones that all fit perfectly together would require an advanced system of measurement and error control. Yet there is no evidence that the Inca possessed such precise measuring instruments. So how did they achieve this? Through inherited experience, through tactile intuition, or through a method that modern science has yet to rediscover? The enigma deepens when considering transportation. Vitcos is not located on a flat plateau, but within a fragmented mountainous jungle terrain, lacking clear transportation routes. Massive stones, weighing several tons, were not only quarried, but also moved across terrain that seems nearly impassable, then positioned with astonishing precision. There is no evidence of wheeled transport, no large draft animals, such as horses or oxen, and no clearly defined infrastructure for moving such loads. This makes the entire process appear as an almost unsolvable puzzle. Some more speculative theories suggest that the Inca may have possessed advanced techniques, perhaps even methods of softening stone or manipulating materials in ways not yet understood by modern science. While such ideas remain controversial and lack concrete evidence, they reflect a growing recognition that conventional explanations may not fully account for what we see at Vitcos. Perhaps the answer does not lie in superior technology, as we define it, but in a fundamentally different approach to material and craftsmanship, one that has been lost over time. Beyond its technical brilliance, the perfection of Vitcos' stonework may also carry profound spiritual significance. In Inca cosmology, stone was not an inert material, but part of Pachamama Mother Earth, a living, sacred entity. Shaping stone, therefore, was not merely construction, but a ritual act, a form of interaction between humans and the natural world. The flawless precision of each stone may symbolize cosmic harmony, where every element must be perfectly aligned to sustain universal balance. From this perspective, stonecraft was not just engineering, it was a fusion of science, art, and spirituality. Ultimately, the Vitcos ceremonial platform is not merely an ancient structure, but a profound challenge to our understanding of history and technology. It forces us to ask, is our knowledge of ancient human capability truly complete? Or have entire systems of knowledge and technique been lost waiting to be rediscovered? In the silent depths of the Vilcabamba jungle, where time itself seems swallowed by nature, the perfectly fitted stones of Vitcos remain not only as a legacy, but as an unanswered question, a mystery that continues to challenge the intellect of every generation. What do you think is the near-perfect precision of Vitcos' stonework, the ultimate achievement of human craftsmanship, or evidence of an ancient knowledge system we have yet to fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Located on the eastern side of Cyprus, Encomi was once one of the most important urban centers of the late Bronze Age. Yet what makes it truly remarkable is not merely its geographical position or architectural scale, but its role as a vast metal workshop, a place where copper, the defining material of an entire era, was extracted, processed, and distributed across the ancient world. When archaeologists began excavating Encomi in the early 20th century, they did not simply uncover the ruins of an ancient city. They revealed evidence of a highly organized production system that resembles early industrial activity, something seemingly impossible for a civilization that existed over 3,000 years ago. As deeper layers were exposed, Encomi emerged not just as a settlement, but as a complex coordinated machine where people, resources, and technology were organized with astonishing precision. From its overall structure, Encomi clearly was not a settlement that developed randomly. The city was laid out in a grid pattern, with straight streets intersecting at right angles, dividing space into clearly defined functional zones. Among these were areas that archaeologists believe were specifically designated for metallurgical activities. This is crucial as it demonstrates that copper production was not a secondary or incidental activity, but the very core of the city's economic and social structure. In other words, Encomi did not exist primarily because of agriculture or simple trade. It existed because of copper and because of its ability to transform raw ore into a highly valuable material. As excavations went deeper, researchers uncovered furnaces that were intentionally constructed far from primitive or simplistic as once assumed about ancient technologies. These furnaces were often positioned to take advantage of natural wind currents, ensuring a steady supply of oxygen necessary for combustion, a critical factor in reaching the high temperatures required to extract copper from ore. Surrounding these furnaces were processing areas where raw materials were crushed, sorted, and prepared before being fed into the smelting system. After the process, molten metal was separated, leaving behind slag, and it is these layers of slag that provide some of the clearest evidence of Encomi's production scale. Rather than appearing sporadically, slag accumulates in thick, extensive layers across large areas, indicating continuous metallurgical activity over generations with output levels that far exceed what we might expect from a typical ancient city. Even more astonishing is the level of technical control that the people of Encomi appear to have achieved. Smelting copper is not a simple matter of heating ore. It requires reaching precise temperature thresholds, controlling oxygen levels, and understanding the chemical reactions taking place within the furnace. If the temperature is too low, the metal will not separate. If too high or improperly controlled, the entire batch can fail. Yet at Encomi, archaeological evidence shows that they not only mastered this process, but repeated it with remarkable consistency. This raises an almost philosophical question. How could a civilization without thermometers, without modern measuring instruments, manage such a complex process on a large scale? Some scholars suggest that this knowledge was accumulated gradually over generations through trial and error. However, the scale and uniformity of the archaeological remains indicate something more, a standardized system, a kind of collective technology. There may have been skilled groups of craftsmen who held metallurgical knowledge and passed it down through generations, or even a governing class that controlled and organized the entire production process. If so, Encomi was not merely a production center, but a complex society in which knowledge and power were intertwined through control of strategic resources. Beyond production, Encomi functioned as a distribution center within a vast Mediterranean trade network. Copper produced here may have been cast into standardized ingots, making it easier to transport by sea to distant regions. Artifacts originating from Mycenae, Egypt, and the Levant, discovered at the site, show that Encomi was far from isolated. It was deeply embedded in a network of inter-regional exchange. In this context, Encomi can be seen as an energy hub of the ancient world, supplying essential raw material to other civilizations while receiving goods, ideas, and cultural influences in return. Yet this very dependence on a complex system may have been its greatest vulnerability. Around 1200 BCE, the city began to decline, with evidence of fires, destruction, and eventual abandonment. What happened? Some researchers believe earthquakes disrupted infrastructure, halting production. Others argue that Encomi fell victim to invasions possibly linked to the enigmatic Sea Peoples who devastated many major centers of the time. Still others propose a deeper explanation: the collapse of the wider regional trade network, of which Encomi was a key node, may have triggered its downfall. When trade routes were disrupted, demand declined, or partners disappeared. The factory of the ancient world may simply have lost its purpose for existence. Another factor, adding to Encomi's mystery, is the coexistence of industrial activity and religious life. The famous horned god statue found at the site may reflect how ancient people perceived metallurgy itself. Transforming raw ore into shining metal could have been seen as a sacred act, a form of early alchemy where humans participated in the transformation of matter under divine influence. If so, the furnaces were not merely industrial installations, but also ritual spaces where science and spirituality merged in ways we can scarcely separate today. The theory that Encomi was in fact Alashia, a kingdom mentioned in diplomatic correspondence of ancient Egypt, further elevates its significance. If Encomi truly served as the center of Alashia, then its role in supplying copper to major empires would have been indispensable. This would mean that its collapse was not just the fall of a single city, but the breakdown of a critical component in the economic and political system of the ancient world. Encomi, with its copper furnaces burning for centuries, its thick layers of slag marking the remains of an ancient industry, and its precisely planned streets, stands as a powerful testament to human ingenuity and organization thousands of years ago. At the same time, it serves as a haunting reminder of the fragility of complex systems. A city can function like a perfectly tuned machine for centuries, yet a single chain of events, whether natural disaster, warfare, or economic collapse, can bring everything to an end. And it is within this intersection of technology, power, and mystery that Encomi continues to challenge our understanding, reminding us that the ancient world may have been far more advanced and far more complex than we have ever imagined. So, what do you think truly caused the collapse of a workshop of the ancient world like Encomi, natural disasters, warfare, or its deep dependence on a fragile economic system? And is it possible that ancient civilizations may have come closer to an early form of industrialization than we have ever believed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really like to hear your perspective. Located on the island of Cyprus in the heart of the Mediterranean, Idalion was not merely an ancient city, but one of the most significant centers of power and production in the ancient world. The remains discovered today continue to raise more questions than answers for archaeologists. From around the 2nd millennium BCE, Idalion developed into a prosperous city kingdom with remarkably organized systems of governance, religion, and economy. It reflected a society that was not only wealthy, but also highly structured, surpassing many contemporary regions in complexity. However, what truly makes Idalion unique and mysterious lies not in its temples or inscriptions, but beneath the ground, where one of the largest copper mining and smelting centers of the ancient world once operated, a massive metal workshop whose scale and technological sophistication still astonish researchers today. Cyprus has long been famous for its abundant copper resources. Even the English word copper originates from the Latin name of the island Cuprum. Yet it was Idalion that transformed this natural resource into real power. Unlike small, scattered mining operations, metallurgical activity at Idalion was highly organized and systematic, reaching a scale comparable to early industrial production. Archaeological evidence reveals the presence of large furnaces, extensive slag heaps, and traces of centralized production zones where multiple stages, from extraction and smelting to refining and crafting, were carried out continuously. This raises a fundamental question: how could an ancient civilization, without modern machinery, sustain such a complex and large-scale production chain? Beyond extraction, Idalion also functioned as a major distribution hub, exporting copper across the Mediterranean. Artifacts and chemical analyses indicate that copper from Cyprus, particularly from the Idalion region, has been found in distant areas from the Levant to Greece and even farther. This demonstrates that the city was not only a production center, but also a crucial node in ancient international trade networks. What is particularly striking is the efficiency of this system, as if it had been optimized over generations. Did the people of Idalion gradually develop these techniques themselves, or did they inherit advanced metallurgical knowledge from a source we have yet to fully understand? One of the greatest enigmas lies in their metallurgical technology. Extracting copper from ore requires extremely high temperatures and precise control of the smelting environment, something not easily achieved even by many ancient civilizations. Yet evidence from Idalion suggests that they not only mastered this process, but did so consistently and at scale. This implies a deep understanding of materials thermodynamics and production techniques, fields not typically associated with ancient societies. Some hypotheses suggest they may have used specialized furnace designs or sophisticated ventilation systems to reach the necessary temperatures, but no explanation has yet been entirely conclusive. Beyond technology, the scale of production at Idalion raises important questions about its social organization. Such extensive metallurgical activity would have required a large labor force, a steady supply of fuel, such as charcoal, and efficient systems for management and distribution. This indicates that Idalion was not merely a mining center, but a complex society where economic activities were carefully coordinated. What enabled such a level of organization? Was there a powerful ruling class overseeing operations, or an advanced administrative system that remains only partially understood? The wealth generated by copper undoubtedly contributed to Idalion's rise as a center of power, and this is reflected in discoveries such as the Idalion tablet, a bronze inscription documenting a legal agreement in which a physician was rewarded with land for treating wounded soldiers. This text not only demonstrates the existence of a legal system, but also reveals how resources, land, and indirectly wealth from copper were distributed within society. It suggests that prosperity from copper production may not have been concentrated solely among elites, but could have extended to other social groups, contributing to a more stable societal structure. However, dependence on copper may also have been a double-edged sword. When trade routes shifted or resources became depleted, a center like Idalion could rapidly decline. Historical records indicate that the city was eventually conquered by the Persians and never regained its former prominence. Yet questions remain: was Idalion's fall purely due to military conquest, or did it begin with internal disruptions in its copper-based economy? If trade networks were interrupted or production costs exceeded returns, even a powerful center could collapse swiftly. Another intriguing aspect of Idalion is the intersection of industry and religion. The city was not only a production hub, but also a center of worship, dedicated to deities such as Athena and Aphrodite. The presence of major temples highlights the importance of spiritual life, but also raises questions. Was there a connection between metallurgy and belief systems? In many ancient cultures, metalworking was considered a mysterious, almost sacred process. Perhaps in Idalion, transforming raw ore into gleaming metal carried symbolic or spiritual significance beyond its economic value. Today, what remains of Idalion are scattered ruins, yet beneath the surface lie the traces of a once vast and efficient production system. Slag heaps, ancient furnaces, and recovered artifacts all tell the story of a city that once stood at the center of a wide-reaching economic network. However, the more archaeologists uncover, the more they realize how much remains unknown. How advanced was Idalion's metallurgical technology truly? Where did this knowledge originate? And why was such an efficient system not sustained or further developed in later periods? Idalion is therefore not just an archaeological site, but a reminder that human history may be far more complex and advanced than we often assume. It reveals that even in ancient times, societies were capable of organizing production, trade, and governance on a scale we typically associate with much later civilizations. And it is precisely this blend of what is known and what remains hidden that makes Idalion one of the most fascinating mysteries of the ancient world, a place where every discovery answers old questions while opening many new ones. After everything we've explored about Idalion, what do you think truly made this city so advanced for its time? Was its massive copper industry the result of gradual human innovation, or could it have been influenced by knowledge that has since been lost? And more importantly, why did such a powerful and efficient system eventually disappear? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Nestled quietly in the arid landscape of Bahrain, Sar settlement is not a monumental structure or a famous city in history, yet its very modesty is what makes it one of the most difficult mysteries of the ancient world to explain. Belonging to the Dilmun civilization and dating back to around 2,000 years BCE, Sar appears like a living record of how ancient humans organized life under harsh conditions, where every small detail reflects a level of thought far deeper than its simple appearance suggests. There are no massive pyramids, no towering walls, no grand displays of power, yet Sar continues to puzzle archaeologists with the near-perfect logic in its construction and operation. This level of organization is so precise that it raises a compelling question. Was this truly just a village, or the product of a highly developed and mature system of social planning? From the moment it was excavated, Sar stood out as fundamentally different from other settlements of the same era. Rather than developing organically and chaotically, it bears the marks of deliberate planning. The roads are not winding, but relatively straight, forming a clear internal network that connects different parts of the settlement efficiently. Houses are not crowded together randomly, but arranged in clusters with space and order, creating the impression that each area served a specific function. This level of uniformity makes Sar resemble an early prototype of modern urban planning, where people did not simply build to survive, but to optimize how they lived. This leads to a major question: did the inhabitants of Sar possess a form of social organization strong enough to control construction? Or was this the result of a long-standing tradition maintained with strict consistency over generations? The architecture of Sar's houses further deepens the mystery. Most homes share nearly identical layouts, featuring a central room that served as the main living space, surrounded by smaller rooms used for storage, rest, or food preparation. This repetition suggests not only practicality, but also the existence of a shared construction standard, an unwritten rule followed by all inhabitants. In the context of the Bronze Age, where settlements were typically more spontaneous, such uniformity is extremely rare. And within these seemingly simple homes, a small yet crucial feature begins to emerge: water wells. It is here that Sa reveals its greatest mystery, the water system. Located near the Persian Gulf, the region is surrounded by salt water, while freshwater sources are extremely scarce. The hot, dry climate, low rainfall, and harsh natural conditions make sustaining a stable community nearly impossible. Yet Sa not only survived it, functioned in an organized and sustainable way. This could only have been possible if its inhabitants possessed a remarkable understanding of water, one that went beyond locating it, extending to its extraction, distribution, and preservation. The wells discovered in Sa were not dug randomly. They appear in carefully selected positions, often near clusters of houses or in easily accessible locations. This indicates that identifying water sources was not a matter of luck, but of knowledge. In a world without modern science, measuring tools or geological maps locating underground water with such precision was an extraordinary achievement. The people of Sa seemed to understand how to read their environment, from terrain and soil color to vegetation patterns, to determine where water might exist beneath the surface. This represents a highly refined form of empirical knowledge built through long-term observation and passed down across generations. Beyond discovery, their water extraction techniques also demonstrate impressive skill. The wells were deep enough to reach stable water sources and reinforced to prevent collapse, no simple task given the primitive tools available. This suggests they understood not only water, but also soil and rock structures, working with nature rather than against it. Some theories even propose that Sa's inhabitants tapped into freshwater lenses floating above saltwater underground, a phenomenon characteristic of Bahrain. If true, this would mean they grasped not only the presence of water, but also its physical behavior, knowledge that many civilizations took thousands of years to develop. The way water was distributed in Sa also reveals a more complex social structure than expected. Some houses having private wells may indicate resource ownership or social differentiation, while shared spaces suggest communal access. Water, therefore, was not just a survival necessity, but the core of social organization, shaping relationships, responsibilities, and possibly even power. Those who controlled water may have held influence within the community. If so, Sa was not merely a village, but a society structured around a single, vital resource. Because of its deep dependence on water, Sa was also highly vulnerable to environmental changes. If groundwater levels declined, if the climate became harsher, or if saltwater began infiltrating freshwater sources, the entire survival system could have collapsed. Notably, there is no evidence of sudden destruction, no signs of war, no clear natural disaster, only silence. The houses remain, standing, the roads intact, as if the inhabitants left in an orderly manner, taking what they needed and leaving the rest behind. This creates a haunting impression, a once thriving community that vanished without explanation. At the center of the settlement, a small yet carefully constructed temple adds another layer of mystery. In an environment where water determines survival, it is easy to imagine that it also held sacred significance. Water may not only have been used, but revered. Rituals may have been performed to ensure its istimrar, to maintain the fragile balance between humans and nature. If so, Sa's water system was not merely a technical achievement, but also a spiritual one, where science and belief intertwined, and where water was both understood and honored. Sa's settlement is therefore more than just a forgotten ancient village. It stands as a testament to human adaptability, demonstrating that even in the harshest environments, people could build organized, efficient, and sustainable systems of life. At the same time, it serves as a haunting reminder that even the most advanced systems depend on the most fundamental elements of nature. When those elements change, everything can collapse in silence. And in that silence, Sa leaves us with an unanswered question. Is what we see today only the surface of a far more complex story, one centered not on stone or architecture, but on water, the very force that gave life to Sa, and perhaps the same force that led to its disappearance from history? Do you believe Sa's settlement disappeared simply because of environmental changes? Or could there be a deeper hidden factor behind its silent abandonment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Hidden within the arid lands of ancient Central Asia, Varaksha Palace is not merely the ruins of a vanished royal residence, but a profound mystery of art, power, and technology that remains only partially understood to this day. Once home to the Sogdian kings, Varaksha did not occupy a prominent geographical position, nor did it lie along major trade routes like many other centers of power. Yet it is precisely this out-of-place nature that makes it more puzzling than ever. Why would a palace of such royal magnitude be constructed in a remote location in a region with no clear economic or military advantages? Perhaps this was not simply a residence, but a space of ritual symbolism, or even a hidden power center deliberately separated from the outside world, where power was not openly displayed, but expressed through more subtle and sophisticated means. Venturing deeper into Varaksha, the most striking feature is not its scale or structure, but the murals stretching across its walls, works of art that seem far ahead of their time in both thought and technique. Scenes of hunting elephants, lions, and mythical creatures are not merely images. They are moments of motion, frozen in space. Viewers can sense force, direction, speed, and even emotion, something rarely seen in ancient art, which is typically static and symbolic. Warriors charge forward, beasts roar, and energy seems to surge through every composition, transforming the walls into vivid, living scenes. This raises a difficult question. How could artists, more than a millennium ago, without modern anatomical knowledge or advanced perspective techniques, create such a convincing sense of motion? Yet, if the imagery alone were all Varaksha, would not perplex scholars as deeply as it does. The greatest and most profound mystery lies in the colors of these murals, an element that appears simple but challenges our entire understanding of ancient materials. After more than 1,000 years of exposure to harsh climates, extreme temperatures, wind, sand, and environmental change, the reds, yellows, and blues of Varaksha remain astonishingly vivid. While most artworks of the same era have faded, peeled away, or vanished entirely, the colors here seem to have preserved their original soul, as if they were painted only recently. This is not merely a case of good preservation, but a genuine scientific enigma. What pigments were used that could resist oxidation, fading, and decay over millennia? How did these colors adhere so firmly to the walls without flaking, when ancient construction materials typically lacked such durability? Did the Sogdians employ rare minerals, unique natural compounds, or even chemical processes that remain undiscovered today? One hypothesis suggests that Varaksha's artisans used mineral pigments such as hematite for red and azurite or lapis lazuli for blue, combined with organic binders derived from plants or animals. However, what makes this explanation insufficient is the extraordinary longevity of the colors, far exceeding what such materials would normally achieve. This leads to the possibility that they not only used specific materials, but also possessed highly sophisticated surface treatment techniques, perhaps involving special ground preparation, moisture control, or invisible protective coatings that shielded the paintings from environmental damage. Another possibility is that the pigments were applied in multiple layers, each serving a distinct function, forming a complex protective system. The base layer may have ensured adhesion, the middle layers created tonal depth, and the outermost layer may have acted as a natural anti-oxidation shield. Remarkably, modern science has yet to fully replicate this technique with the same level of precision. This raises a larger question. Could there be lost knowledge of materials and art from the past, secrets that modern humanity, despite advanced technology, has yet to recover? Beyond technique, color at Varaksha carries deep symbolic meaning. These vibrant hues were not merely decorative, but may have formed part of a language of power, a means of conveying strength, dominance, and the status of the ruling elite. Hunting scenes featuring animals such as elephants, creatures not native to the region, may not represent reality, but rather symbolize power that extends beyond borders, the ability to command what is distant and unattainable. In this sense, color is not just visual, it is a tool to impress, to evoke emotion, and to reinforce authority. The architecture of Varaksha further reinforces this idea. Unlike fortresses built for clear defensive purposes, the palace features a complex layout of open spaces, corridors, and grand halls seemingly designed for rituals and performances. This suggests that the site functioned as a stage of power, where every element from space and light to color was orchestrated to create a controlled experience, leaving a powerful impression on those who entered. Every wall, every image, every hue may have been part of a larger script, where power was not only held, but deliberately displayed. Yet, like many ancient mysteries, Varaksha did not endure. The city and its palace were eventually abandoned, leaving no clear trace of why. There is no evidence of large-scale destruction, no signs of devastating warfare, only silence and a near-complete disappearance from history. What happened to a place that was once a center of refined power and artistry? Was it the decline of the Sogdian civilization, shifting trade routes that stripped it of importance, or political and religious changes that led to its abandonment? In the end, Varaksha Palace is more than an archaeological site. It is an open question about the true capabilities of humanity in the past. It challenges our assumptions about the limits of ancient technology, especially in materials and art. The colors that have endured for millennia are not just a preservation miracle, but a reminder that we may not yet fully understand what our ancestors once knew. Is Varaksha merely a forgotten palace, or evidence of a level of technical mastery that history has underestimated? And more importantly, are the secrets hidden within its layers of color still waiting to be uncovered, or will they remain buried forever with time? In your opinion, what is the greatest mystery of Varaksha? The pigment technology, the symbolic meaning of the murals, or the silent disappearance of an entire center of power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Lying quietly in the harsh coastal desert of northern Peru, Chotuna Temple complex is not merely an ancient architectural site, but one of the most puzzling testimonies to the technical skill and planning mindset of the Lambayeki civilization. At first glance, Chotuna can easily be mistaken for ordinary adobe ruins, sun-dried clay structures eroded by time. but the closer one looks, the clearer it becomes that nothing here is truly random or primitive. On the contrary, the entire complex bears the imprint of deliberate design, a form of master planning that even many later civilizations may not have achieved at the same level. It is precisely this intentionality that forms the starting point of all the mysteries surrounding Chotuna. The first striking feature is how the structures within Chotuna are arranged along clearly defined spatial axes, not just one, but multiple intersecting axes forming a network of orientation that, when viewed from above, reveals an astonishing balance. The earthen pyramids, huacas, ceremonial plazas, and functional areas are not scattered randomly, but appear to follow a specific geometric logic, with distances, proportions, and orientations repeating in patterned regularity. Some studies suggest that these axes may align with the sun's position during key times of the year, such as solstices and equinoxes, or even correspond to constellations considered sacred by the Lambayeki people. Yet the question remains, how could a civilization, without compasses or precise measuring instruments, achieve such refined spatial orientation? Did they rely solely on long-term observation of nature, or did they possess a structured body of astronomical and geometric knowledge that we have yet to decode? Beyond its overall planning, Chotuna's construction techniques present another profound mystery. The adobe walls here are not simply piles of earth stacked together, but are built in clearly defined layers, often several meters thick, forming massive structures with a load-bearing capacity far beyond what would be expected from clay materials. This layered construction not only enhances durability, but may also function as a natural shock-absorbing system, reducing the impact of strong winds and the constant expansion and contraction caused by extreme temperature shifts between day and night. Some wall hatvats reveal the use of nearly uniform bricks arranged in repeating patterns with remarkable precision, creating a form of modular construction, a concept that in modern architecture is considered essential for efficiency and optimization. This suggests that the Lambayeki people were not building purely by intuition or experience, but had developed a standardized system for material production and construction, enabling them to control both quality and scale. Yet this almost modern rationality only deepens the mystery. Achieving such a standardized construction system and coherent urban planning would require a highly stable social organization, a reliable method of transmitting knowledge across generations, and an efficient system of resource management. However, to this day, there is no clear evidence of a fully developed writing system among the Lambayeki in the traditional sense. So how did they preserve and transmit such complex technical principles without distortion over time? Perhaps they relied on collective memory systems combined with hands-on training passed from generation to generation, or perhaps there existed a form of geometric symbolism or non-verbal conventions acting as living blueprints during construction, a type of knowledge we struggle to recognize today because it does not exist in written form. Another factor that intensifies the enigma is the remarkable consistency in construction methods across different parts of Chotuna. Despite being built and expanded over multiple historical phases, the structures maintain a unified architectural language from brick arrangement and wall proportions to spatial organization. This indicates not only the existence of an initial master plan, but also a continuous system of supervision and control, ensuring that later expansions remained faithful to the original design. This is something even many modern cities struggle to achieve, as development often becomes fragmented and inconsistent over time. What allowed Chotuna to maintain such coherence across generations, a centralized authority with absolute power? a religious system strong enough to enforce strict adherence to shared principles, or a sacred master plan that was never allowed to change, preserved as an untouchable legacy. The role of the environment cannot be ignored when analyzing Chotuna's construction techniques. In a desert, where wind and sand constantly erode surfaces, choosing adobe as the primary material might seem risky, even illogical. Yet upon closer examination, it may be precisely the flexibility of adobe that made it ideal. Rather than resisting nature with rigid materials, the Lambayeke may have chosen to adapt, creating structures capable of controlled erosion. The layered bricks could act as sequential protective layers, where the outermost layer absorbs environmental damage and gradually wears away, while inner layers remain intact. This reflects a highly advanced engineering philosophy, not resisting destruction, but managing it. If this interpretation is correct, then Chotuna is not merely architecture, it is a system designed to endure within constant change. Some researchers propose that Chotuna's layout is not purely technical, but deeply symbolic, representing a form of cosmic map based on ancient beliefs. The main axes may correspond to sacred directions. Open spaces may symbolize natural elements such as water, earth, and sky, and the entire complex could function as a miniature model of the Lambayeke worldview. If so, then construction and planning at Chotuna were not only practical endeavors, but also a form of non-verbal language, an architectural expression of abstract ideas, a way for humans to communicate with the divine through physical space. The deeper we study Chotuna, the clearer it becomes that its true significance lies not only in what we can observe, but in what we cannot yet explain. Every wall, every axis, every layer of brick appears to follow a tightly structured internal logic, yet that logic does not fully align with the technical principles we understand today. It is neither entirely alien nor entirely familiar, as if we are witnessing a system of knowledge developed along a different path, a technological evolution that history did not continue. And perhaps this is where Chotuna Temple Complex reaches its greatest value, not merely as a site to be studied, but as a question to be contemplated. How could a civilization without modern technology create such a complex system of construction and planning? What knowledge has been lost over time? And are we underestimating the true intellectual capabilities of ancient societies? Chotuna offers no clear answers, but it is precisely this silence that makes it one of the most profound and captivating mysteries of the ancient world. Do you think the mystery of the Chotuna Temple Complex lies more in lost ancient knowledge or in a way of thinking and building that modern science still doesn't fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Pyramses, also known as Pyramses, was not merely an ancient city that once existed in the past, but a powerful testament to the possibility that ancient civilizations may have reached levels of development that we still do not fully understand today. Built during the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses II, around the 13th century BCE, in the fertile Nile Delta, Pyramses once served as the northern capital of Egypt and simultaneously functioned as the political, military, and economic center of one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world. However, what makes Pyramses truly remarkable is not just its immense scale or wealth, but the way it was designed, a highly organized urban system with clear strategic planning and features that many modern cities have only achieved in recent times. From the earliest archaeological investigations, researchers realized that Pyramses was not a city that grew organically over generations like many other ancient settlements. Instead, It bore the unmistakable signature of a master plan from the very beginning, where every element from geographical positioning and transportation systems to functional zoning and architectural design was carefully calculated. The city was arranged in a logical structure, with the royal palace complex at its core, acting as the center of power, radiating outward into administrative, religious, residential, and military districts. This division not only optimized the city's functionality, but also reflected a level of urban planning sophistication typically associated with modern cities. Delving deeper into the structure of Pyramses, one of its most astonishing features was its multi-layered transportation system. Not only were road networks carefully laid out to connect different districts efficiently, but the city also possessed an intricate system of internal canals, allowing movement by boat within the city itself. This indicates that the ancient Egyptians did not simply build on land, but fully integrated water as a key component of urban infrastructure. These canals were not isolated. They were directly connected to branches of the Nile, forming a broader regional transportation network that turned Pyramses into a major hub of water-based trade. This is a concept that many modern river cities are still striving to replicate today. Beyond transportation, the inland harbor system of Pyramses further demonstrates its advanced level of development. These harbors were seamlessly integrated into the city's structure, allowing ships to dock directly within urban areas from which goods could be rapidly distributed across different districts. This not only enhanced economic efficiency, but also played a crucial military role, enabling the swift deployment of troops and chariots via both land and water routes. The combination of these transportation systems created a flexible and highly efficient operational network, allowing Pyramses to function like a well-coordinated machine in which every component was interconnected and mutually supportive. One of the clearest examples of Pyramses' advanced urban planning is the massive complex of horse stables and chariot facilities. This was not just a typical military installation, but a highly engineered system designed with precision and foresight. The stables were arranged in orderly rows with appropriate spacing to ensure ventilation, natural light, and effective drainage. The flooring may have been designed for easy cleaning, while pathways were strategically placed to facilitate movement and management. This demonstrates that the ancient Egyptians were not only skilled builders, but also had a deep understanding of maintenance and operational efficiency, key principles in modern urban planning. Architecture in Pyramses was not purely functional, it was deeply symbolic as well. Palaces, temples, and public buildings were constructed not only for use, but also to project power belief systems and social order. Massive columns, statues, and reliefs were arranged according to specific principles, possibly linked to astronomy or religious cosmology. Some researchers have even suggested that the city as a whole may have been designed as a microcosm of the universe, where the placement of structures reflected the relationship between humans, gods, and nature. What is truly astonishing is that all of this appears to have been accomplished within a relatively short period of time. This raises a significant question. How were the ancient Egyptians able to mobilize resources, organize labor, and manage such large-scale projects so effectively? Constructing a city with complex planning, multi-layered infrastructure, and sophisticated architecture would have required not only technical expertise, but also a highly efficient administrative system. Could it be that they possessed organizational methods that we have yet to fully uncover? Yet the greatest paradox of Pyramses lies in its disappearance. A city with such advanced planning and architecture could vanish almost entirely from history. When a nearby branch of the Nile shifted its course, the city lost its primary water source and gradually declined. However, Rather than being simply abandoned and left to decay, Pyramses appears to have been systematically dismantled. Buildings were taken apart, and materials were transported to other cities, especially Tanis, causing its physical remains to be scattered and obscured for thousands of years. The fact that an entire city could be recycled on such a scale reveals an extraordinary level of organization and long-term planning. It also raises an important question. Was Pyramses a unique case, or just one of many advanced ancient cities that have since been forgotten? If a city that once stood at the heart of a great empire could disappear almost without a trace, how many other civilizations might have vanished in a similar way? Today, what remains of Pyramses lies buried beneath the ground at Kontir, but each new discovery helps us piece together the story of a city that once stood far ahead of its time. It is not merely an archaeological site, it is an open question about history, about the capabilities of ancient humans, and about how much we still have yet to learn. Pyramses reminds us that history is not always complete, and that what we see today may only be a small fragment of a much larger and more complex picture. If a highly planned and modern-like city, such as Pyramses, could disappear almost entirely from history, do you think there are other ancient megacities still hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below.